to the French Channel.
Okay, we're going to start in about 1 minute. All right, good morning, everyone. Ottawa
Based on an untreated for their culture and preserve.
I'll now ask the committee the roll call.
Councillor Brock. Here.
Here. Morning. Confirmation of we have the minutes June 3rd carried. Thank you. And from the joint meeting Transit Commission and Light Committee comments from May 3rd carried. Thank you. We have 3 inquiries at this point. Had any requests to lift the you 4.3 for you. Move it to the agenda.
Yeah, that's Chair. I'm wondering if we could get that to the next meeting.
Noted, and we will consider that at our October meeting. Any other requests, Councillor Hill?
I did want to speak to. And I can do that now. I could do that later today, or if you want to put that to the next meeting, I can do that as well. But I would like to speak to a couple questions.
Well, it'll be at the will of committee. Is committee okay with bringing this item onto the agenda today? This would be for 4.2 LRT operating. Councillor Hill, your colleagues are asking, are they going to be quick questions?
Yeah, I got four fairly quick questions, but again, I'm comfortable to do it in the next meeting if this is too heavy on the agenda.
Okay, we're hearing next agenda. So Councillor Hill, if you're okay, we'll move it to the next agenda for discussion, given how busy we are today. If you're good with that.
I understand. That's fine.
Okay. So 4.2 and 4.3 we'll consider on our agenda in October. And the other inquiry is 4.1, no requests on that one? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. So going through the agenda, we have item 5.1, which is our monthly OC Transpo update, and we have over 30 delegations registered for that, so we're definitely holding that one. We have item 7 pardon me, 6.1 is our 2024 Q2 budget status report. And we have delegations for that one, 2 delegations for that one. And then we have item 7.1, which is our presentation from OC Transpo unions. What I'm going to propose is we juggle around the order a little bit and we consider the budget report first. We do our update, our presentations from the union second, and then we move to our monthly OC Transpo update with the will of committee. Folks okay with that? Okay, thank you. So we'll proceed that way. And then item 8.1 is the status update, Transit Commission inquiries and motions for the period ending September 3rd. Is that report received by committee? Received. Okay, thank you. So that means we'll shift to item 6.1, which is the 2024 transit operating and capital budget. We have a short presentation from city staff, and then we'll go to our delegations after that. Isabel Jasmine's presenting. Good morning, Isabel. Morning, Lane.
Morning, Chair. Thank you. So my presentation today will focus on the 2024 transit operating and capital budget year-to-date results for quarter 2 to the end of June 30th, 2024, and the forecast as best as we can forecast to the end of the year in 2024. Next slide. So quarterly reports for operating compare actual revenues and expenditures against what was budgeted for that quarter, in this case up to Q2. It is only in the Q2 report that we can start to forecast to the end of the year, but this is not an exact number. It is just an estimate based on year-to-date trends and any other known factors or assumptions we can make in the latter half of the year. Actual results can vary quite significantly from forecasts if there are any unexpected events or factors that materialize. The capital reports detail capital works in progress, total budget for each project, actual spending to date, and any remaining funds. Next slide. So as at the end of June, transit services expenditures are below budget by $13.6 million. This underspend is primarily due to the delay in the opening of the O train lines 2 and 4. We have also held off on issuing debt due to the high interest rates and expectations that those interest rates would decline in the latter half of the year, which reduced expenditures but was offset by a reduction in recognition of revenue from gas tax funding that pays for that debt, and which will be held in reserves until that debt is issued. Compensation is higher than budget due to the hiring of unbudgeted temporary positions, the cost of which is recovered from capital. There was also a delay in the implementation of the 2024 workforce savings and higher overtime costs offset by vacant positions. Fleet maintenance costs, paratranspo, and insurance claim costs were also higher than budget. Revenues were less than budgeted by $25.1 million, primarily due to lower ridership, increased discounted fare use, and as mentioned previously, the reduced requirement for gas tax funding. The $25 million revenue shortfall is roughly $10 million from fares and roughly $13 million from gas tax that remained in reserves. We also received $5 million less this year from provincial gas tax. In the previous year, the province kept us whole on those reductions, but did not in 2024. The reduction is primarily attributable to Ottawa's slower ridership recovery compared to other municipalities in Ontario. But this is not reflected in the revenues. It does not impact how much gas tax is allocated. It only impacts how much gas tax is allocated to reserves. Next slide. As mentioned earlier, the forecast to the end of the year is just an estimate and final results may vary. For example, we included very conservative ridership trending estimates to reflect the federal public workers returning to 3 to 4 days per week in September. The $14 million incremental variance for the balance of the year is mainly the result of continuing lower fare revenues of $7.4 million and continuing higher expenditure costs of $6.7 million for fleet maintenance, insurance claims, and paratranspo service costs. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabel. We have 2 delegations on this item. First up is Laura Shantz, who I believe is joining us online.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning, Laura.
Morning. Sorry I can't be there in person with all of you, but happy to join you nonetheless. As you all know, my name is Laura Shantz. I'm a member of Ottawa Transit Riders. I want to speak today about the cuts to LRT service frequency that have occurred in the past weeks within this budget period, with the goal of saving just over $1 million per year. Cutting service from every 5 minutes to every 10 minutes on the LRT may seem like a minor inconvenience to those who do not regularly take transit. But for those who do, it makes service more difficult and inconvenient to use. For those connecting from the train to a bus, fewer trains means more difficulty making connections. It means having to leave earlier. It means getting to your destination later, longer overall trips, and less convenience for riders, making transit a less inviting option. Those extra 5 minutes might mean waiting 35 minutes for your connecting bus instead of 5. It can be the difference between getting to your destination on a single transfer or having to pay twice for a service that can leave you high and dry. For me, it's the difference between getting to where I need to go at the end of the day easily or having to get off that bus and start running to be on time for the last call at aftercare. The cuts behind the scenes hurt too. The $47 million in efficiency found for this year's transit budget, including $42.7 million in cuts to contributions of capital reserves, only serve to hurt the next generation of transit riders, especially when we consider that we will be taking control of a 30-year-old LRT infrastructure that is, at 2 days short of the 5th anniversary of its launch, already showing its age. And thinking about that $47 million in cuts, the $120 million hole for next year's budget is really noticeable. It's, you know, these things do not happen in a vacuum. There are links here. These are choices we've made. We all know the challenges, and average citizens don't necessarily have the answers to everything here, nor is it on us to make the transit system work. That's what we elect leaders to do. What riders do know is that we need transit that is affordable, reliable, accessible, and that goes where we need it to go. When we think about this budget, when we see the shortfalls, when we see the lower ridership, I think about conversations I have in the community when I hear people tell me how much they miss, for example, the 95 bus. I'm not trying to romanticize the rush hour traffic jams on Slater and Albert, but I certainly do miss the frequency and reliability of that route. The magic of walking to the platform and knowing there will be a bus in 3 to 5 minutes at any time during the day, that I never had to check a schedule unless I was waiting for the last bus of the night or the first of the morning. That was amazing. That was what made me a dedicated transit rider in the first place in moving to Ottawa, not needing to worry about these things. And that's what the goal should be for our LRT system as well. If we want this to be the backbone and the showpiece, we need to make sure it can give people that kind of reliability, that kind of confidence that it's coming and it's ready to get them where they need to go to make those connecting buses and be on time. How you make up the budget shortfalls is for you to decide, but I urge you to avoid putting transit further into a death spiral. Fund transit like it matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Are there any questions from committee? Okay, I'm seeing none, and we'll move on to our second speaker, Megan Cardinal. Do we have Megan Cardinal in our room this morning? Good morning, Megan. Welcome. To speak, there's just press the button on the microphone in front of you and you'll have 5 minutes.
Good morning, esteemed committee members. I'm Megan Cardinal, Climate Program Coordinator at Community Associations for Environmental Sustainability, also known as CAFES Ottawa. Today, I want to address the critical importance of maintaining and expanding public transit funding in Ottawa. Next slide, please. I recently moved here and I'm originally from Montreal. Due to financial reasons, I didn't own a car growing up. Public transportation was essential for me to be able to connect and engage with my community. It allowed me to access jobs and gain work experience. It allowed me to see friends. My university studies. Unfortunately, since moving to Ottawa, my experience with local transit has been disappointing. It has been unreliable. When family and friends ask me about this particular aspect of my move, I wish I had better things to say about it. Next slide, please. This city faces a transit crisis with potential service cuts and fare hikes looming without additional funding. This threatens our city's mobility, environmental goals, public health, and overall quality of life. Next slide, please. OC Transpo is grappling with a budget gap, and while cost-cutting measures are being implemented, these alone are insufficient. We must recognize public transit as a public good requiring sustained investment. It is important to note that revenue and expenses alone don't tell the full story. While we understand the cost of public transit in monetary terms, we lack a dollarized measure of the benefits. Therefore, I will aim to elucidate the true value of these benefits. Next slide, please. The environmental benefits of public transit are significant. By improving our transit system, we can substantially reduce greenhouse gas emissions, aligning with Ottawa's climate goals. Each full bus can take up to 40 cars off the road, decreasing our carbon footprint. Next slide, please. Public transit also offers health benefits through improved air quality and increased physical activity for users. When I moved to Sandy Hill, I actually noticed that the air quality was better, and this is something my family also noticed when they came to visit me this weekend. That's not something that I would want to lose in my community. It promotes equity by providing essential mobility for those who cannot drive or afford cars, ensuring access to jobs, education, and services. Next slide, please. To make public transit more attractive, we should focus on improving efficiency and incorporating amenities like Wi-Fi. Transit options should be faster, more affordable, and less stressful than personal vehicle use. Next slide, please. Efficient public transit enhances Ottawa's appeal as a tourist destination and improves residents' quality of life. It aligns with our official plan's Big Move goals, fostering a more connected and sustainable urban environment. We're at a crossroads. We need a commitment to long-term stable funding that recognizes the essential nature of public transit. This includes prioritizing transit over road expansions in Ottawa's budget. If more people can take the bus, perhaps we don't need to widen roads. Investing in public transit is investing in Ottawa's future. It's about creating a more sustainable, equitable, and livable city for all. Let's not allow short-term financial pressures derail our long-term vision. Next slide, please. I urge this committee to champion increased transit funding and preserve this vital public service. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you, Megan, for your presentation. I should just remind folks in the audience to please not applaud, hold your applause. It's part of our decorum and procedure here. Any questions for the delegation? Okay, I'm seeing none. So thank you to both of our delegations. I'm sure we'll have more on this theme as we get to our monthly OC Transpo update and our discussion with councillors there. Are there any questions for staff on this report? Councillor Brockington?
Thank you, Chair. I just have one question for the Deputy Treasurer. In her report, she had mentioned that most of the surplus for the first half is to be credited to the fact that the Trillium line is not yet running. What exactly is that amount? So if the line had been running, would the surplus be significantly less?
Chair, it's approximately 2 million per month. It's approximately 2 million per month.
It's approximately 2 million per month.
And so you are also estimating an end of year number or figure. Does that figure include when the Trillium line will actually open?
Chair, the answer is yes. We still expect to open the Trillium line this year. So let's say if it's in October, so we will need to pay on October, November, and December. And when we will implement the new ways to bus, we'll have another saving with the review that we have put in place.
But each month is about $2 million. So to the Deputy Treasurer, what month do your numbers reflect the Trillium line opening?
So I have the numbers here. We're projecting another 3 million past the Q2 projection.
So what does that mean as far as months though? You're estimating an end of year number.
So when we did the Q2 projections was probably a month ago. It's all probably already out of date, but it would have been to the end of August. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Lowe.
Thanks, Chair. I may have missed a little point there. You had mentioned about the forecast towards the end of the year. Was that based on fares from, does that include the change to the 3-day workday for public service employees?
There was a slight and very conservative estimate because we didn't know, again, we did this forecast of a month ago. So we didn't know what the results were going to be. And so it was a very conservative estimate. Yes.
Okay, thanks. And, you know, I'm sure whatever's going to change between now and then won't really cover the revenue shortfall that we're dealing with, right? In terms of short term, yeah, I think this question's in order, but in terms of short term, what can we do or what is being done to sort of cover that, as much of that shortfall as possible? I don't expect to cover it all, but as much as we can with short term, like quick measures.
Chair, since the beginning of the year, we have done our due diligence to make sure that we reduce our discretionary expenses. We have a hiring freeze in place, and we continue to work with everyone at OC Transport to find some savings, even if we know that only for this budget last year, we put on the table 30 million recurrent. So we have already done a lot on service reduction to be more efficient, etc. But now we are done.
And last follow-up to one of your things is that where is this hiring freeze impacting?
Thank you for the question, Chair. It's more with administrative people because we know that we need mechanics, we need bus drivers, so we haven't hired those for sure. But all the administrative staff, we go meticulously with those hiring.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lieber.
Thank you very much, Chair. We're saving about $2 million a month in the delay to the opening of the Trillium line. Obviously, the trains are running back and forth. There's operators on them. We're consuming fuel. Can I just get some precision around where those savings are? Is that the fact that we're not fully staffed up yet?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So we haven't moved to the substantial completion. When we will move to the substantial completion, this is where we will pay M&R, which is TNX, but for the maintenance. So for now, it's the construction cost because we need to make sure that the trains, the systems are reliable. So they haven't hand over the system to us.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Just to clarify, on slide 4, you had a note discussing the discounted fare, the increase in discounted fares. I just wanted to understand a further breakdown of the types of fares that were included in that, given that, you know, the UPass might have some relationship to our growing student populations, and I would imagine that would have a different strategy perhaps than some of those passes that are subsidized by other departments of the City of Ottawa.
Chair, if I understand the question, so for the UPass, we don't have any problems with that, but our statistic shows that the single fare has increased effectively versus the monthly fares. But this is something that we are tracking actually, and we will be able to report to this forum if we see another trend. So we would like to see more monthly passes versus single fares. So this month is a very important month to see this this transfer, I would say, and we will report to this forum.
And if I could just add, in my presentation last week, discounted fares and those who use discounted fares have come back to pre-pandemic levels. It's the ones with the full work, going to work, that have not.
Okay, any other questions? Just for clarity, any shortfall we would be covering through the transit reserves. So what do we have in our reserve now? And is it sufficient to cover the projected shortfall?
It is not sufficient to cover the projected shortfall, so we would have to look as part of the disposition report where those revenues would have to come from.
What's in the reserve now? What's the difference between the
I don't have the
projection
number
and
off the top of my head.
7.
7 million.
7 million?
Yeah.
So we have 7 million less in our reserve than what we're projecting as a year-end shortfall.
We have 7 million left in our reserves.
Oh, we have 7 million
Yeah,
total.
to pay for the 32.
Okay, so
Yeah.
a substantial difference. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments? Is this report received? Received. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 7.1. This is presentations from OC Transpo unions in response to council motion number 2022-0309. So this is something new in this term of council. Every year we are inviting, or we have invited, the unions representing OC Transpo workers to make a presentation to committee. We have 3 representatives. We have Noah Weinberg from Amalgamated Transit Union Local 27, Jamie Larkin from ATU Local 1760, and Anshul Chaudhary from the Canadian Union of Public Employees Local 5500. They're all in the room. Not sure if y'all want to come up together or who's speaking first. I'll leave it to you. So we'll have a presentation from each of the representatives. You can sit down at the end there. We'll make some space for you. And then after you've all presented, we'll have the opportunity for committee members and councillors to ask any questions. Welcome, Noah. Yeah, just press the button.
Thank you. I would like to correct, it is local 279. Thank you kindly. Thank you.
Local 279. Thank you for that.
J'aimerais remercier la Commission du
I
Transport
would like to
commun.
thank the Transit Commission, the councillors, as well as the mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to take the floor
I
today.
would like to thank the Transit Commission, City Council, and the wonderful people of Ottawa for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Today, I stand before you representing the dedicated members of our ATU Local 279. We are the backbone of OC Transpo. We are the front line. We are a vital part of our shared community. We have never been more aligned with the public than we are now. We are united in our struggle against continuous cuts and service cancellations. We empathize with you. We share your frustration. We stand with you demanding improvement. Our members are faced with unprecedented levels of street work, start points, relief trade-off points, and ending points. The excess in deadheading and wasted travel time disrupt our operations and complicate the already challenging task of servicing our riders. Many of our operators are forced to travel between multiple runs on the street, often leading to impossible expectation. This creates a demand for corrections, cancellations, confusion that only serve to further frustrate the anger of those that rely on our buses to assist managing their lives and their activities. Regrettably, some of our operators on shifts tirelessly for up to 12 hours, yet are only compensated for 7.5. On average, they are working 12-hour shifts and receiving pay for closer to 8 hours. Para operations are forced to deal with outdated and subpar buses, unreasonable schedules at times. This commission has heard about some of the tribulations that many of our para users have had with their difficulties with the scheduling, the bookings, and the technologies. This is not only unfair, but it is unsustainable. Schedules both for rail and buses are stretched in some cases to the limits of safety and legality. The margins to which the cuts have been made deal in minutes. The difference between legal obligations for breaks, spread times, and driving times. These differences and these conditions often lead to health risks, burnout, sick leave, and worse, the perception that we need to push the limits. These factors can lead to discipline and backlash. These factors inevitably get carried over into our homes, severely impacting the delicate balance between work and home life. The years of neglect regarding our bus system in preventative maintenance, the tools necessary to be successful and have been evident for so long. The good people of Ottawa have been hearing about these same issues for the better part of my 23 years here at OC Transpo. The lack of attention and investment, as highlighted during our last year's discussions with this very commission, has primarily focused on the train system, leaving our buses at a breaking point. We have expert mechanics, garage attendants that fabricating equipment to keep buses viable long after their decommission dates. Yet we continue to contract out work that needs to be rechecked, recertified, sometimes even redone. The failures in procurement and the life lengths of the vehicles that we have purchased hinder the abilities to live up to these unrealistic schedules. We are short on people, we are short on buses, and the conditions to create an environment that can attract and retain, much less thrive. The morale and family balance of our members has been systematically destroyed for 4 years straight. We have been told that we are being heard and that our concerns matter, and that our conditions and scheduling will improve. We are constantly battling cancellations, experiencing critical shortages of buses, and facing recurring failure in service. We run parallel bus service to our trains while using a drop in ridership on the actual train to justify cutting up the work, cutting up needed headways for the passengers. Every one of these changes draws a significant impact on our members. They are forced to reschedule their daily work, their childcare, their vacations, and any other arrangements they may have made to have a semblance of a life outside of their job. And the promises to adjust to the demand if needed instead of proactive investment translates to, we can add work, sometimes force overtime, have people come in on days off. All of these adjustments, unplanned and on the fly, affect every single one of my members. The demand goes up in the garage when there are already short buses. Getting those buses cleaned and ready. The operators are adding to their long work days or coming in on their days off. The dispatchers are left to scramble, to triage and cover hundreds of trips and work blocks. The control room needs to piece out and find solutions to reassign trips, cancel runs, and mitigate the chaos. The fact that our members continuously succeed in doing this daily while seeing the same schedules churn out month after month and year after year is beyond frustrating. We are now told to be patient and wait, once again, for new ways to bus. Just like route optimization, this is just another brand with new colors and no record of accomplishment. We can only hope that this is not yet another event that our city overpromises and underdelivers. Our union, alongside with the public, is exhausted from being the scapegoat for these systemic issues. The recent cuts to LRT service have only heightened this problem, and we are being asked to adapt without fundamental support, making last-minute changes and cuts just weeks before the many university students return to class. And we are pushing and fighting to have federal workers come back to our offices for several days a week. I find it incredibly short-sighted and counterproductive. We have an obligation to be prepared to serve them. How can we expect the public to trust, rely upon, or invest their valuable time in this transit system if we can ensure cleanliness, safety, reliability, and consistency? A schedule and a headway that fits their needs, their lives. It is essential for a capital city, the heart of our nation, to have a transit system to be proud of and one that resembles this beautiful city of Ottawa. In conclusion, we must address these issues urgently. We, your public servants, need your support and collaboration so we can provide the reliable service that our community deserves. Last year, this commission was told of the need of a fair enforcement team. It took a year to get these members in position. I know that every level has been squeezed to its capacity. The funding has run dry, and the demands for further cuts only serve to erode the fabric of OC Transpo. I am asking this commission to instruct council to properly fund and invest our transit service. I cannot support an increase to fare structure. The responsibility cannot continue to fall on the shoulders of those who need us the most. I support our Mayor, Mark Sutcliffe, and our General Manager, René Aminacar, in requesting fair support and proper funding from all levels of government, not only for infrastructure, but for operational funding. Everyone must step up to cover this cost, and the riders, along with the ATU 279, have already carried our share of the weight. We need to get our people safely and reliably to the places that we are building. We are here to serve. Let us work together to restore the faith in our transit system. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thanks very much, Noah. Thanks very much, Noah. For clarity for the commission, Local 279, which employees do you represent at OC Transpo?
Operators, both rail and bus, conventional, dispatchers, mechanics, garage attendants, BSAs, fare enforcement officers, and pretty much everybody that is in the administration staff or in the control room.
And approximately how many members is that?
Just over 2,800 members, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Noah. Jamie Larkin, did you have a presentation for us? So Jamie Larkin is with Local 1760.
Local 1760, we represent the administrative staff at OC Transpo and administrative supervisors within the administrative staff. We have approximately 450 members. We're here to talk about, I'd like to just ramble on, not do a full presentation like that, but I want to discuss about the recent workforce adjustments that happened in February. 28 of our members were affected by this. These jobs are still being done by other members. So this is creating a lot of hardship on them. They're trying to do more with less. They're getting frustrated, they're getting tired, they're getting burnt out. We want to bring back ridership. There's a lot of talk about how do we bring back ridership. We got to bring in new customers. Got to bring in and customer service is at the top of the list. There's nobody out there assisting ridership. There's nobody there. People are coming to the stations. They're lost. They're confused. The maps are confusing. There's nobody there to help them. I was working, I can give you a story. On July 6th, I was helping assist the customers going to Blues Fest. And I was at Rideau Center, Rideau Station West for 2 hours. We had 49 fare evasions. I assisted 27 customers and not related to Blues Fest. A lot of these customers I assisted were frustrated. Half of them left, went up, took Uber, taxi, found alternate ways to get around the city. You go down there, there's no map of our transit system. You got to pay the fare to go in to see the map and determine where you want to go, if you even want to use transit. So people are just getting up and leaving. They're not sticking around. We have a train going to the airport. We want people coming in to the city of Ottawa. There's a train there. Is there going to be somebody? There's probably not going to be anybody there. There's a system. Where does the train go? How do they get around the city? Nobody's going to take the transit. You need people out there. You need the assistance. You go to Toronto, you go to Chicago. All the major stations, there's somebody there to assist them. People here are lost. They're lost. They need some help. We're a municipal service. It's an essential service for some people, transit. We should be treated like fire, police, ambulance. We need the money. We need the budget. Council's got to support that. With the workforce adjustments, there was Renee talking about the gaps in employees. Now we're hiring temporary workers. A lot of the staff are just there temporary, up to 30 months. They get frustrated. They're sitting beside a coworker who gets the benefits, the pension, the pay. These people don't get that, and they're getting frustrated as well. So if we want to retain, these employees with specialties, we're going to have to do something for them. We're going to have to hire them full-time permanently. So like Noah said, we support the council and we got to invest in transit. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jamie. And Anshul Chaudhary with QP Local 5500. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Anshul Chaudhary. I have been elected QP 5500 president for 4 years. I joined OC Transpo in 2008 as a bus operator. In 2015, I became a transit supervisor in QP 5500. I also worked as a dispatcher and electric rail controller for some time in OC Transpo. I would like to start by saying that I'm very thankful to be working as a transit supervisor in OC Transpo. Like me, there are hundreds of employees who love OC Transpo and City of Ottawa and want to do their best, regardless of their union affiliation. I represent 3 departments in OC Transpo: Fleet and Facilities Maintenance, Transportation, and the Special Constable Unit. The roles of my members in Fleet and Facilities consisting of garage, building, energy system, stores, and auto body supervisors, work study techs, planners, coordinators, and technologists. Transportation consists of transit supervisors, rail supervisors for line 1 and 2, communication officers, electric and diesel rail controllers. Last but not least, special constables that encompasses special constables and communication dispatch officers. We are seeing a massive staffing issues. We need more garage supervisors, planners, and coordinators to push the service out on the street, provide the buses for AM and PM rush hours. We require additional SC officers to maintain the law and order on OC properties. We require additional rail supervisors on both line 1 and 2, and additional transit supervisors to manage bus and provide supplement service for rail disruptions, as well as provide support to our customers. We have been asking for more staff so we can monitor and provide proper coverage inside the garages and outside on the street, including on the Confederation and Trillium lines. But due to lack of funding, we have been told that is not possible. The result is more cancellation of trips, and passengers are now waiting longer to catch their buses at a time when we need to increase ridership and generate more revenue. Due to delays in hiring and lack of attraction and retention, the current staff have been feeling the pressure of providing unrealistic demands of service and are getting burnt out physically and mentally. I personally work in a control center most of the time. As an example, on my most days, we are tasked with solving many of the service problems and inefficiencies of other branches. When things go wrong, we are the ones dealing with it real time. We have been asking management for more than a year to replace and hire more incumbents so we can have enough staff to run the garages. It's almost impossible to get trade licensed professionals in the garage. OC Transpo is not paying the private sector rate. And furthermore, the shift structure requires members to work evenings, overnights, and weekends, which is a challenge for balancing work and family life. In 2018, we were 62 transit supervisors at the time of Confederation line opening to help with the workload. Then we fell to 57, and currently we are 55 due to budget cuts. TOCC is the heart of OC Transpo operations. We deal with service disruptions and do our best with the available resources to minimize cancellation in service. As of right now, management has no budget to supervise the Trillium line, which is line 2 as well, we call it, bus stations in the south, Leitrim or Boswell. My question is, who will respond when rail disruption is going to happen? I have a record of last 4 weeks where on average we are canceling over 252 trips a day. Out of that, we are covering 125 trips and leaving 127 trips canceled per day. I remember there was a time when it was a full service before COVID, and we used to cancel 50 trips to cover. We had 50 trips to cover in PM rush hour, and we used to cover 40 trips out of that. And our managers used to send us an email to the staff that what an amazing job we did. We are to be able to perform, not able to perform and cope with these demands as we used to because of less staff. We are also hearing that OC Transpo is about $100 million deficit for next year. You cannot cut employees in operations. Any more cuts would just destroy the existing service we are providing to our valuable customers. Also, this creates a very uncomfortable environment for current employees as it causes them anxiety and pressure. Members are continuously asking the union if they will have a job in the future or not. How can these employees be productive when they know cuts are coming because of lack of funding? The bottom line is that we as a city cannot expand the bus and rail service, but shrink the staffing levels. This makes absolutely no sense. I'm aware that Commissioner Gower did a ride along with the special constables a couple of months ago. I'm inviting him to come and spend some time at our workplaces and see what we do, how important QP 55 members are to provide safe and reliable service every day to our community. We support council and we support Renee Amilcar here. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my locals' concern.
Thanks very much, Anshul. And yes, I'll gladly come out. It's always a privilege to be able to see what's happening behind the scenes and meet with the employees who keep OC Transpo up and running. So absolutely. We do have a number of questions from committee members, starting with Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentations today, as always. Just a couple of quick comments. First, I do want to say thank you very much, Noah, for the support you've given to the mayor's effort to get more operational funding from the province. I don't know that very many of us have read the entire report, but the Financial Accountability Office of Ontario did come out with a scan this morning of operating subsidies. And I won't read out the full thing, but where Toronto's receiving $191 per capita, Ottawa is currently receiving $59.61 per capita. We are well below the Ontario average, $111 per capita. So I think a little bit of wind under the sails of the mayor's campaign for fair treatment for Ottawa. And also, thank you very much, Jamie. It feels radical this morning when the system is so challenged to think about actually improving customer service at the platforms. You know, we're trying to stabilize the bus system, and some of us, I think, are just despondent that we could think about a system that's actually a pleasure to use, much less one that actually runs properly. So thank you very much for raising that. I do have a couple of questions. I wanted to give you first an opportunity. We hear month after month at Transit Commission about mechanic and operator hiring and how well that's going. I'm hearing a different story this morning. Can you help me reconcile that?
The simple answer is we don't compete with other market. We don't compete with other agencies. We don't compete with private sector. There have been some discussions, however, recently that encourage going forward, and we will try and find solutions together. We have agreed to be collaborative, but it has been a difficult task till now, and there's a lot of work to be done to support the staff that's already in the garages doing the work, yeoman's work. But we will get there.
That's perception and reality of the working conditions under which OC Transpo staff are working as dissuading people from potentially wanting to put their names forward and apply for the jobs.
Absolutely. Scheduling, the comparables, evenings, weekends versus being able to work in private sector for days puts us in a position very difficult to compete. What was once a entity that people wanted to be a part of, using a family to be in OC Transpo, and it's not just on the garage side, it's everywhere. When I took the job, I sacrificed things to do it, but I've looked at it as a long-term career that I'd be able to raise my family on, and I worry about people being able to do that now with the conditions that we're dealing with. Yep. And it comes from every level. The cuts keep working its way down. The reality is my members and the public are at the bottom of that hill. And that's just where we're at. There's nowhere left to go.
But that has consequences.
Always does.
Yep. The route review, this commission, this council have gone along with a route review, $10 million in efficiencies on the promise that it will match the resources match the service to the resources we have. The buses will be more reliable, fewer canceled trips. It's fewer trips scheduled, but we'll be better able to deliver those trips. I wanted to give you an opportunity just to speak a little bit more about that? What I'm hearing, is it just cynicism, or is there any analysis behind the caution that we're hearing about today?
Whenever we come up with a new route, we have experienced operators do those routes. Some of the numbers that got put in and some of the numbers that were actually run don't line up. So there'll be questions on our end, obviously. It really is a prediction. And our success rate with predictions in the last 10 years is not good.
I'm going to chalk that up to cynicism then. Founded cynicism. Founded cynicism. And then finally, the maintenance issues on the buses. We have a lot of stock in the e-buses as our one of our solutions to ensuring that buses are able to get on the road in the morning. What should we look forward to or not as more and more of the fleet becomes electrified in terms of being able to deliver trips on the basis of mechanically sound and well-maintained equipment?
I can tell you my members would welcome any buses at this point. Very excited for the possibility of going green, understand all the reasoning behind doing it. Cynicism, like you said, I worry that we are expecting too much and we're not doing anything to mitigate that in the meantime, and that's the concern. Like I said, more buses would absolutely help, but we need the staff to be able to run them and to be able to fix them. So catch-22 every time.
The provincial and federal government has a role to play in ensuring that the resources are here. And I hope that Council and Commission are listening very closely to the plea for adequate resourcing that you're making today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leeper.
Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the three of you for coming today. It's very important for us to listen, and we are listening. I was the one that moved the motion at the beginning of this term of council to provide this opportunity for the union leaders, the employee leaders, because I think it's very important for members of the commission and by extension council to hear directly from you. We need to do more of it. And you need, and you have brought the top priorities of your members here. It's very, very important. So thank you. It was frustrating in past commissions when former GM withholds information from the council and from this commission and have to fight tooth and nail with the former chair just to get agenda items addressed. It's absolutely crazy, but thank you. My personal request as we go into budget is to remain present and active. What are your top three priorities? Reach out to members of the commission. Continue to reinforce the main needs of your members. So that is factored in as we go through our budgeting process. Mr. Weinberg, I do want to ask you one question, and you know, passenger and operator safety is always top of my mind. Given your presentation this morning, do you believe that buses are being put on the road now that are not safe for our passengers or your operators?
I don't think anybody at OC Transpo would ever back putting something out they didn't have full faith in. I believe in my mechanics. I believe in my garage attendants. I even believe in management to a degree. I do believe nobody would ever put this public at risk knowingly.
Fair enough. And I perhaps the way I phrased it, I did not want to imply at all that your members were willingly or knowingly doing that. So let me rephrase it. Is the way we service our vehicles, is there anything that you can raise to the commission's attention in how we are servicing the vehicles, the frequency, how they're being done? You talked about contracting work out, having to recertify, recheck work. Is there anything you wanted to reinforce with us today in that regard?
Definitely would like that we never subcontract anything out, obviously. But the reality is sometimes we are forced timelines and whatnot. But doing so and not following through on all of the practices and discussing it with the union going forward and seeing if something can be done in-house and literally mitigating every factor before getting to that result it has to always be done in-house. It's our name, my mechanics that sign off on these regardless. Even if we subcontract it out, they still have to look at it. So all work should be done by our in-house. And in the event that it has to go out, we and when you start to make too many exceptions, things slide.
Thanks again to the three of you this morning. Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'll just start by saying a sincere thank you to all three of you for your presentations and for the members of your locals for the hard work that they're doing. It's our bus drivers, it's our maintainers, it's our front end service providers that are the ones that are facing the public. They're the ones that are fixing the issues for us, and it's appreciated. I can tell you, having spoken to a number of my transit riders over the last few days, they very much thank you for the hard work that you do, for the long hours that you're putting in order to do the best you can with the transit system that you have. So thank you. A few questions. The first one, how are we lining up for the Trillium line to come online? Is everything in place from a union perspective in terms of employees, in terms of the scheduling and the manpower? How do you foresee that process getting positioned for us so that we can have success this fall?
Unfortunately, there are some things that aren't completely in place. We are continuously working in tandem in collaboration with management. Our members, the ones that have gone over to the Trillium line have gone over with pride. The legacy drivers that have already been there, they're very proud of that work as well. So the desire is to be in step with management to get to that point. We are working out some details probably later this week as well for how that's going to happen, because there will be a significant increase in demand on my members. And not all of those factors have been put in place, but we have had all the discussions. So hopefully we'll be able to come to a reasonable solution that helps everybody and we can get this going on time.
So from your perspective, are we exposed to a significant amount of risk, or is this normal kind of negotiation process to get us to where we're at? Or should we be concerned that we could see this as a component of potential further delay?
We'll do everything in our power to assist along with this, but I'm not a fan of promises made before deals.
Understood. Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I think, recruiting and retention. Coming from the military, I understand the challenge with that. And I know, having spoken with some of your members, a big concern comes to the fact that often these full-time shifts include 8.5 hours of work, but that work is covered over a 12.5 to 13.5 hour period of time, which over years leads to concerns about quality of life. So I guess my question is, do you have some solutions here that could address that problem, which would come, I don't want to say cost neutral, but are there ways that we can modify or shift schedules without looking at, big, massive changes to software or new investments required, but things that, I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit because it's too cliche, but just, are there schedule adjustments we can make that would alleviate some of the frustration and retention concerns of your members?
There's always constraints with the collective agreement, with our labor laws, us being unique, that we fall under a lot of federal laws. Only 3 properties in Canada do so. I understand and I can empathize with some of the situations that make these situations difficult. However, yes, there's always something that can be done. At the end of the day, the adage of where there's a will, there's a way, it always exists. And I can say, I can't imagine the public is any less sick of talking about scheduling than I am. I walked the line in 08 and we're still dealing with the same nonsense.
are there considerations that could bring value here from a part-time perspective? I know that that's not currently a part of the model, but I would think that, maybe if there are peak times, in the morning or in the afternoons, that, perhaps someone as they progress in their career and perhaps move from full-time to maybe a part-time to retirement, that could be a paradigm that could alleviate some of that scheduling concern. Is that something that could bring value or efficiency to this?
We have a hard enough time getting full-time people. I don't understand how part-time would alleviate. The concept of peak has disappeared. It's not the same as it was. They relied all of these train schedules that they made the changes on, calling about peak. Everything has changed. We're using old data that isn't accurate. We're using old data that hasn't even played out yet. The standard, we built this city for the federal workers to go back and forth. That train was done for them. So yes, we have to adjust. Yes, we have to pivot. But to use the theory that they're going to be going in early morning and coming home afternoon isn't realistic. There's got to be a compromise on every level here. Part-time isn't going to solve that. Part-time erodes at the quality that you give. If this is looked at as a part-time gig, you're going to change the entire workforce. As I said earlier, and I stand by it, the people here are proud to be here. They want to be part of the solution, but they want to be able to raise their families and have a life at the same time.
To talk a bit about maintenance then, I know that a portion of your maintenance is done in-house, a portion of your maintenance is done contracted externally. Are there efficiencies to be found there, or is it simply a question of when you lack capacity for certain types of maintenance, it gets contracted out, and it's a bit of a zero-sum game in that you get the benefit from paying external organizations to do that maintenance and coming in, or is there some duplication of effort that could be looked at to support us?
I'm not a fan of subcontracting anything out, as I have stated. It has to be redone or relooked at, recertified regardless. There's always things that can be done to streamline. The reality is the chain event, the chain effect is what happens. As soon as you start canceling runs, as soon as you start trying, the train goes down and you need to get R1 service, you now need a need for more buses. The scramble is on to make that happen in that moment. When you do that, that's when you need more buses. We're not giving the tools necessary to do the jobs. If we had an abundance of buses, if we had done the procurement properly, if we had everything we needed without trying to stay away from being green, we wouldn't have to always ship stuff out. There is times that it has to happen because we're under the gun or pushed to a limit. But we can't always be a reactive system. We have to be proactive. And it's tough to get to that point. But to do that, you have to invest. You have to overinvest. You have to have it be more than ready for when the pitfalls come so that you can handle them without it being the end of the world. You can't always ride the line and not fall off.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll just close by saying very much appreciation to you, to the folks that are driving these buses, maintaining these buses and trains. It's really appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks Noah and gang for coming out today. It's great to see you here. First of all, when it comes to operator safety, I know that it's at the hearts of almost all of our committee members. Back in 2021 with the protective barriers, myself and a couple others at that time were really pressing the charge to make sure those barriers were in place because we were seeing physical assaults, sucker punches. So you can have my commitment. I'll continue on that path to ensure the operators are protected because that has been a growing issue for sure. Second, what I've heard from a lot of operators when I'm actually on the platforms or I'm discussing things with people is about, and I'll have questions to staff later on about this, you have a great contingent of the special agent groups that are around. Do you feel there's enough? Because at Blair Station with the terminus, I hear about it constantly. We have a massive theft issue taking place. It's one of the highest targets for the LCBO in the city. You've got the Walmart. There's no protective fencing, making it so you can't simply just run onto the train, onto that platform, which is happening now. Do you see the need for more boots on the ground officers within those stations? Because I know the customers feel that way, but I want to know from an operational perspective.
Just the presence of those uniformed officers deters a lot of activity. More of that being out, the threat of enforcement doesn't have to necessarily be a threat. Anybody who's considering not paying, or anybody who's considering walking down that path, if they see a uniform near there, they're going to think twice about it. And the majority of people will avoid it. Some won't. It's like anything. But when you don't even look at it, you don't even put anything in the way to mitigate that, then you're just inviting more of it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not a comfortable environment for our customers either, that have to witness, 3, 4, 5 thefts of a day and people running across and I've heard this from operators, where they actually see them going out the back doors of the Walmart, pushing the emergency doors open, running across the transitway to get onto the LRT. That's unsafe as well. So I've been advocating for some kind of barrier system. It hasn't gone anywhere at this point, but I'll be pushing for that as well, just as an added feature, because I've heard that from operators. And last, I share your concern on Plan B. I've asked about Plan B. I know Councillor Lowe feels very much the same. It's great. We all want to be adopters of technology, but it's duct tape and bubble gum right now holding a lot of our buses together. I want to hear from on the ground, because I've heard it from operators. I'm very operator friendly. Some of the buses are having a lot of challenges because frankly, they're just too old. And without bringing back another fossil fuel based bus, we're really at the mercy of waiting for these electric buses. What are you noticing about the current fleet right now that is frankly out of life cycle?
This week, I was truly impressed. I know we had trouble with the R1 early and the train. However, I know that Councillor Hill and Councillor Lowe were out at Barrhaven, and they were impressed with how we recovered and bounced back from that with the staffing and the busing. I want to commend the people in the garage for getting a lot more buses out this week than before, but that just goes back to what I said. Some of these people are working miracles in there, and they're fabricating parts, but it just goes to show how professional and expert they are and how proud they are to get it out there. And can we keep doing that? No, it's not sustainable. Do we need to look at adding buses? Absolutely. But in the meantime, the question of safety and the question of what's coming out, I have zero doubt. I have full confidence in every one of my members that it's as good as it possibly could be, if not new as it comes out, because they do their work very, very well.
Thank you for that, because you're quite correct. The mechanics, the workforce, they're not hired as fabricators. They're hired to be mechanics, and they are going above and beyond because of decisions of this council and committee in the past that have led to these buses aging out, and to get the parts is near impossible, and we don't have a plan B. So I'll be pressing more on staff when we get to that point, but I want to thank you and your unions for coming out today. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations, by the way. I think this is your first time here as president of 279. Nice to see you, Anshul, and Jamie as well. I think most of the questions I really had were sort of covered already, but for context, like I was a bus operator around the time of the LRT launch, and at that time, a lot of arguably premature layoff notices were served to a lot of my coworkers, and that hits, right? Like people start looking for jobs, right? Their life, their stability is thrown into question. They need to be stable. They need an income, and the uncertainty, of potentially being laid off, like caused a lot of people to leave, not just for other jobs, but also for other transit agencies. There are people who moved to London, Ontario, Toronto, I think, Kingston, I want to say, to be transit operators because they like the job, but they need that certainty that they have a job. And so when I asked that question earlier about the hiring freeze to help with the shortfall, I was sort of, I'm sorry, Jamie, but I was sort of like, it gave me a little bit of relief to know that it wasn't the frontline staff that was impacted, because we've also gone through hiring freezes after those premature layoff notices and we've never recovered, right? Operator shortages were already a thing when I was there. This is like 2017, 2018. And, they're worse now. They're much worse now. The thing about, our oldest buses, they're pushing 20 years old. Some of them are pushing 20 years old. The life cycle of a bus is 12. If you refurbish it, then I think 16 or 18 years. And we also have one of our most common model of buses is a model of bus that was not very popular. We bought 300, 400 of them. And now I think that's why you're fabricating parts for the Enveros, right? The 90 or so Enveros that we have left. And I do worry what's going to happen with our very large purchase of articulated buses in a few years, because we have 306 buses that are going to hit 18 years in 4 or 5 years, I want to say. And that's why, like in the past, I've asked about, like, will we shift to like a more steady state procurement? There are a lot of transit agencies that buy tranches of buses every year, so that the problems of suddenly life cycling out 1/3 of your fleet doesn't have to come up. And so really kudos. I've never been in the maintenance bays because I'm not allowed, because I was not allowed even back then. But I know some of the work that goes on back there, and sometimes when I take the buses out back then, how quick some of these things could be fixed in the garage, like sort of gave me really good respect for the staff that you have. And having worked in the control room as well, and saw the flurry of activity and the chaos, frankly, during a snowstorm in the control room, the chaos during R1, many implementations of R1 now, when I was in there, because I also did the Twitter, and we talked about it a lot. Is truly awe-inspiring. So I do actually have a question. I'm not just rambling. I do have a question. You talked about, we're talking about this new ways to bus. We're talking about Line 2 launching and matching service to resources, but also, you talked about scheduling, which has been contentious even when I started in 2014. Scheduling has been contentious, and it still is. Like I know that schedules are tighter now, even more tight. The CLC breaks have been implemented, and we also have less service now too. So if a bus is late, the impact is greater, or canceled. If a bus is late or canceled, the impact is greater. So I do want to know, at the beginning of the route review process, we were promised a lot of internal things. We were promised things like less interlining of major and minor routes, so that if there's a delay on Woodruff, it's just the 74s and 75s that would be hit. Whereas right now, someone waiting on a side street in Barrhaven will have no idea why my 171 is 15-20 minutes late. There's never traffic on Stoneway, for example. So have you had any insight into like those details yet? Like, have you seen the schedules? Because the schedules are out, but have the runs been built? Have you had any insight into that? And have any of those promises sort of been fulfilled in your view?
Anything in regards to that would be anecdotal, other than the operators that I know tested some of those runs. They look promising to a degree. Yes, I will confirm there is less interlining. There was work definitely put in to address some of those issues, but it hasn't played out yet. So we won't know how well these work. But yes, they definitely reduced interlining. They reduced some of the deadheads. But again, goes back to what I said earlier. We get put into this corner and we have to wait. So everything relies on the other thing coming into play. So we get a taste of it or we get to see it, but we're not sure how it's going to work or if we're going to get to use it. And I understand it's all part and process. I understand how it works. But the frustration is those of us that have been here longer than some of the management team running these things, some have been here the whole time, have been through this before with the train, with those threats of layoffs. The first time that the solidarity or the structure of our employment was literally threatened. And so many of my members worked under a layoff signature going into that without a single layoff. That was the first time that it hit home that this isn't necessarily the secure gig that everybody thought it was. And then as we move along, and in fairness to some of the new management, they're coming in new and they are doing what they can. I get that. But route optimization is new ways to bus. I've been here 23 years. I've seen this game. I'm tired of waiting.
You know, like the Councillor Leeper said, founded cynicism, right? Like we won't believe it. We won't know it until we see it. And I'm sure that's the same with you. I have informal conversations with some of my former coworkers. There is some hope. Like it's not 0%. It's not, oh, this is gonna fall apart on day one, right? It wasn't like Confederation Line. Confederation Line was like that. And it does give me some hope based on those conversations there. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for your time, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Menard,
excuse me, pardon me. I do share the same hope. I want to make that clear. There is promise to what's coming.
Councillor Lowe.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Menard.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks very much, Chair. And thank you very much to the representatives that are in front of us today. It's great that you're able to come out and speak with us. I also want to not so much thank you for the hours of service, but just say that you shouldn't have had to go through what you've been going through. The operators, mechanics, frontline staff, the last several years, you've taken the brunt of it on behalf of the city, and I recognize that. It's so not so much more than a thank you. I'm sorry you've had to go through that as well. I did want to ask, because you started the presentation with some pretty clear objectives or asks to help to fix things. And I'm wondering twofold, if you could just be very clear with us, what are those top 2 or 3 things that need to be fixed in your end? And I hear it's about investment, it's about hiring, it's about getting the people in place to do this, frontline workers full time. I believe that's what you're saying. But if you can reiterate those. And then the second ask I'll have of you is if you can please send a note to all of council, because it's not just Transit Commission that needs to hear this. All of council should read what it is you've experienced and what the solutions that you're putting on the table are. Because continually around here, we're not talking about ridership. We've been talking about cuts and efficiencies and route reductions, but not ridership. And we need ridership to go up. We're never going to get to a higher level. 55% it was ridiculous in the past of fares. We're never going to get to that if we don't have ridership at the end of the day. So anyone that talks and says, hey, we're not meeting the tax levy to fare evasion or fare amounts. Well, if we don't talk about ridership, we're never going to get to those amounts. So at the end of the day, that's what's important is the ridership piece. I think fare evasion is a very, very, very small part of that. But if you could just go through those top points you had already made and just reiterate them for this commission, and then also follow up with an email to all of council, that would be appreciated.
Yes, I will gladly share the text and speak to any councillors that wish to have a face-to-face on these issues. Quite simply, the priorities are invest into it at a risk for the first few years that you may be over-investing, but get it ready so that it is a system that's worth coming to attract that ridership. We have to give people a reason to come, and then give your people, what used to be a family, the equipment, the tools, and the compassion to get the job done properly and reward them for the hourless and tireless work they're putting in. Don't get me wrong, people are very proud to do this work. People are very proud to put in these hours. The question is, are they compensated, and is it costing them their family life or balance? That's where the problem lies. Finding a common ground where both can succeed so that we get to the real point and have the public get what they need.
Thank you for that. I'll look forward to that email to all of council. The last point I just want to ask you about is the city has put out a list of 5 areas that could be affected drastically given the transit deficit. I've communicated very clearly to the mayor and other colleagues that the list of pieces we've put out should be at a lens on ridership. What is going to affect ridership? If it is going to affect ridership negatively, then why would we consider doing it when we're already having trouble keeping up with ridership? It makes no sense. It's just a spiral down. So I guess I would like to know your view on those elements that have been put out there and their effect on ridership.
I was floored when they made the cuts so recently, right before they asked for people to come. I can't, even to today, having heard explanations, cannot wrap my head around the decision, the timing of the decision, the lack of evidence to support the decision. And I did send an email to all councillors prior to this, and I participated in some group efforts with the university unions. I'm shocked that we didn't reverse this already. We are going to have to fix this. We fell on our face on the first try. All of these things have to be avoided every single time.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Chair. I look forward to the work that we have in front of us with you, and appreciate you being here. It's refreshing hearing from you. Thank you.
Okay. There's one additional question. Just in time, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try to be brief. I've been hearing a lot and seeing a lot in social media about the congestion on the roads over the past couple of days as return to office. Clearly, there are a lot more people driving to the office than there used to be, and we don't need to explore too far why that is. But I'm just curious from the operator perspective, what you folks are seeing in terms of congestion on the roads, and whether or not there are any thoughts around solutions for that congestion. It probably falls within the transportation committee to try to make some of those routes clear, to try to create, more BRTs, more bus-only lanes, all that sort of stuff. But what has been the experience of the operators over the past couple of days? Well, I've got you here.
I think it's concern would be the word I would use. I've never met any driver, including myself, that has ever been comfortable driving by in their full bus and not being able to stop. You're not given that opportunity to have that explanation or that conversation with the person that's standing there just watching you go by. The reality is there's laws, there's limits, there's capacity. We don't have choices, but it drives us nuts when we can't serve every person that we want to serve. And we do see more vehicles on the road. Absolutely. The request for people to come back to work is working. We failed to give them a reason to use us. And we have to do that by whatever means necessary. We have to find a way to make it tempting for them to come. And when they do come, have it be enjoyable. We have to incentivize people to use our system. We can't keep just saying, we'll do better. We have to be better. We have to be the best. We were considered one of the best for a very long time. We have to be that. This is the capital of the country.
100% agreed. But I'm wondering if you can speak to what's going on the roads right now, the difficulty of navigating. Is it having an effect on the service? Just trying to get from point A to point B. I know somebody who lived in Alta Vista was trying to get to see me last night around 5:30. I think they were an hour and a half driving, trying to get to see me in Hindenburg. What's it like on the roads right now?
With the added traffic and the incredible amounts of road construction, and yes, everything's getting backed up. Roads, we're back onto regular roads. Transitway is gone. The majority of bus lanes are gone. So it's a negative impact immediately when you have more cars on the road. We've designed all of this. The promises were always around The train will solve it. We won't need to worry about the traffic and have buses on the regular traffic. It wasn't designed to have us going cross town anymore. So chicken and the egg, which one do you fix first? But we have to fix it.
Road congestion and drivers' commutes are only going to get worse until we improve public transit.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, that is it for our questions. I want to echo the thanks from many of my colleagues for all the work that your members do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep our city moving. And we do appreciate it. And thank you for your presentations and your patience with our questions today. Thank you. Is this report received? Received. Thank you. Okay, we are going to go now to item 5.1, OC Transpo update, rail, bus, and paratranspo. We'll start with the presentation from staff. Then we'll go to our 32 or 33 delegations. Yeah. And you have a motion. Let's wait till after the staff presentation and then we'll introduce your motion. Thank you. Yeah. Renee, over to you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour tout le monde. Je saisis
Thank you,
l'opportunité
everyone.
qui m'est accordée ce matin pour remercier
I would like to thank Jamie,
pour leur
Noah,
présentation.
and Nashville for their presentations.
Personnellement, moi, j'ai commencé à être
Personally,
gestionnaire à l'âge de 28 ans.
I
J'ai toujours
became
géré dans un
a
contexte,
manager at the age of
avec
28,
des unions.
and I
Et ça a
always
toujours été
worked
un
with trade
contexte
unions.
difficile parce que
It was
bien sûr,
always
on a chacun
complicated
nos
and
objectifs,
difficult because we always have our own
chacun de notre
objectives.
côté. Je veux
Each party
prendre
has its own
l'opportunité que j'ai ici
objectives.
pour dire que
I would like to take the opportunity today
les gens qui sont en charge
to say
présentement,
that
autant pour ATU
the
279,
responsible
autant pour QP 5500 et puis ATU
for all
766,
the trade unions,
définitivement, je sens que leur objectif, c'est vraiment de donner un meilleur service
I
à nos
understand that
clients.
their
Et
objective is to
là-dessus, nous
offer a
avons le
better
même
service to our
objectif et
clients.
c'est
So
ce qui
we
me
have a
rend
common
heureuse tous les
objective.
jours dans mon travail. Thank you,
And that's the
Chair
reason
and
why I'm
Councillor, to be
going
here today.
to.
I'm pleased to be at our first Transit Commission meeting since the summer break. My team and I have important update to share on our fall service plans and projects. Next slide, please. To start, I'm pleased to let you know that RTG has directed Alstom to resume work on a full redesign of the cartridge bearing assembly for Alstom Citadis Line 1 vehicles. This is fantastic. We are working with RTG to make sure they will deliver on their commitment to deliver a consolidated status and remedial assessment report in Q4 2024. Richard Holder will share an update today. On line 1, there is rail grinding, ballast, and stage 2 integration work planned for this fall that will require temporary closures or adjustments to our service. Troy will share more details on these activities later in the presentation. We will ensure that service disruptions are widely communicated to help our customers plan ahead. As always, we are making every effort to minimize disruptions for our customers. This September, we have also increased our fare compliance efforts. Since September 3rd, fare inspectors have been out across the transit network reminding customers that fare enforcement is in effect and educating them on how paying fares supports our transit system. Dwayne Duquette, our acting chief safety officer, will share more information on this shortly. We will also bring a report to committee on the Fare Compliance Initiative later this fall. In collaboration with participating educational institutions, we have recently made changes to our UPass program. UPass has been integrated with university and college student cards to allow eligible students to carry one card instead of two. We are aware that there is currently a data transfer issue impacting a limited number of students using their UPass cards. Students can still access transit by showing their students' cards to bus operators are using the video chat function at ticket machines. Students that have paid a fare due to this issue will be offered a full refund. We are working closely with our partners to resolve this quickly. Information and medication measures have also been shared directly with educational institutions and through OC Transport social media channels. Next slide, please. Earlier this week, I provided Council with an update on a CCTV camera issue that impacted service on train line 1 at approximately 6:10 a.m. on September 10th. These cameras are essential to our system and used by operators to ensure trains can safely depart stations. When the cameras stopped functioning, we suspended train service for everyone's safety. Replacement bus service was deployed immediately, and staff arrived at stations shortly after, which allowed partial train service to resume at 7:30 a.m. Full service resumed at 8:15. RTM and our engineering team are actively investigating this issue, and we will provide additional updates as we know more. Next slide, please. Fall is always a busy time for us, and as I said in the memo shared last week, we are ready to welcome back our customers. Potential changes in ridership volumes, including the federal workers who are back 3 days per week instead of 2, we are carefully considered when adjusting Line 1 schedules and was part of our fall service planning process. As federal government employees return to working in the office 3 days a week and students go back to school, we have a range of service and convenient payment options to suit various travel needs. Based on current observations, I can confirm that we are seeing more riders since the start of September, which is great. And we are meeting customer demand, maybe not all the time. Some peaks we see, we need to fine tune some peaks, very maybe 20 minutes per day, but we're still on a good shape in general. Staff have also been closely monitoring ridership across the transit network and will continue to do so. We continue to have the capacity to welcome additional customers and can increase service if ridership warrants it for the old train line 1. I want to emphasize that these schedule and service adjustments were not made lightly and were necessary to meet our unfortunate financial constraints while still meeting customer demand and changing travel patterns. Next slide, please. As you know, we established the Transit Advisory Working Group earlier this year. We have 2 formal meetings and 2 informal information sessions with this group so far, and I've had many productive discussions. At our inaugural meeting in May, we discussed the agenda for future meetings. In August, we spoke about the 2025 budget process and ways that we can increase revenue and decrease expenses. In addition to the formal meetings, we have also held 2 optional information sessions covering performance measurement, as well as the structure and process for the city's and OC Transport's budget. Chair Gower and Chair DeRoche have each participated in at least 1 meeting. Thank you for that. These discussions have brought forward many interesting and unique perspectives that we value and are considering internally. We have also established a SharePoint site which will be used to share meeting minutes, agendas, background, and reference materials. Next slide, please. Some good news. Our next generation of zero-emission buses are now in production. The picture of the bus you are currently seeing is from New Flyer. We will provide further updates on the ZEB program and the status of our fleet at a future commission meeting. And now I would like to provide an update on the executive search for the new director of rail construction, which was announced at the end of July. Next slide, please. Since my last update to council, I have had the chance to observe Richard Holder in the role of acting director of rail construction, working with the rail construction program management team and with representatives for Transit Next and KEV. I have been impressed, although not surprised, to see how quickly Richard has adapted to this new acting role. The support he has brought to his new team and the strong oversight that he has been able to bring to the project as a whole and to our meetings with our construction partners. In their interest of ensuring an efficient and effective transition for this project, I have asked Richard to take on the position of Director of Rail Construction permanently, and he has graciously accepted. Thank you, Richard. Richard's qualifications come not only from his credentials as a professional engineer and his over 20 years of engineering experience at the city, but also from his familiarity with the rail construction program gained through his time as the manager of the Stage 2 rail infrastructure branch. Personally, I really like working with Richard. I'll miss Richard on his current role at the engineering department, but we will continue to work together, so I'm still happy. We have now shifted our executive search process to fill the position of Director of Transit Engineering that Richard's appointment leaves vacant. This position is an important one as well, and while we search for Richard's replacement, the employees in transit engineering will report directly to me. Richard will continue to keep a close eye on the axle bearing issue, and he and I will work together to ensure that we maintain progress towards a sustainable solution. And now I will hand this presentation over to Dwayne Duquette, who will present the health and safety key performance indicators, as well as details on fare compliance. Merci beaucoup. Over to you, Dwayne.
Merci. Bonjour, Commission de Transport en Commune.
Good morning, Transit Commission. I am the head of security at OC Transport. I'd like to take a few minutes today to talk to you about our security measures.
Next slide, please. First, I would like to draw your attention to the top left-hand corner where we show our customer injury rate. Our SMS, or Safety Management System, target for level 3 customer injuries is a little over 1 per 1 million trips. At the end of July, we are reporting a decrease in employee injury rate to 0.49. We are encouraged by these results and are confident we can continue to meet our goals even with the difficult winter months ahead. Next, I want to discuss employee occurrences. Again, our current metrics are up to and including the end of July. With over half the year represented, we are in a solid position to achieve our targets of less than 7.57 occurrences per 200 kilometer hours. An employee occurrence may or may not include an injury. Some examples of non-injury occurrences are minor vehicle incidents like a mirror clip or a trip and fall that has no subsequent injury. The top 3 employee injury occurrences are struck or caught, stressful event, and assault. Assault, as classified here, can include physical assaults, but also threats or acts and gestures. The next 2 graphics take a closer look at our assaults by position and location. The top table represents our level 2 occurrences or higher, which by definition may require first aid attention, but not a transport to a medical facility. It is clear when you look at the table that by position, assaults are greater among bus operators. This is a result of 2 contributing factors. They are our largest pool of employees and work directly with the public. Additionally, and due to the nature of our business, most of the assaults on operators occur while they are in the operator seat. We have experienced an uptick in occurrences with an increased ridership, but are happy to report that we have not had a serious operator assault on our system since 2021, when the installation of the driver barriers began. Next slide, please. Le tableau de haut de cette diapositive présente notre taux de collision de
The
véhicules
tables here present the vehicle collision rate with the results at the end of July was per 108 kilometer.
or our rate of collisions are 2.34 total and 1.07 of these being preventable. Both of these metrics are above our targets, and as a result, we continue our efforts to reduce them. One of the mitigations used to reduce these rates is targeted towards intersections, where we see a higher frequency of incidents. The bottom graph shows our progress on the CAIA, or Controlled Intersection Awareness Training. We have now completed delivering this training to all active employees, and through this training, we identified 77 individuals who showed elevated risk and required additional attention. These individuals have received their skills building training, and as such, this will be our final update on this program. Also mentioned on this slide, we have seen an increase in speeding infractions this year over 2023 and a slight decrease in red light infractions. Next slide, please. Finally, I would like to give everyone a brief update on our fare compliance initiative. In July, our Special Constable unit hired both permanent and relief fare inspectors to increase our existing staff and create a pool of pre-trained inspectors to draw upon when we need them. Training was completed over the summer, and on September 3rd, we began deployment on the transit system. The initiative will run until the end of September, with 12 inspectors active across the network to enforce transit bylaw. Once completed, we will review the results. September was chosen deliberately as it represents the greatest increase of new riders across the system, thus allowing us to establish clear expectations. The ultimate goal of this initiative is not to penalize, but to reduce the lost revenues and protect the integrity of our fare system. Une fois que l'initiative sera terminée et examinée, nous pourrons
Once
faire le point.
this is all done, we can review the results. In the meantime, I'd like to thank all those who contributed to this program.
Everyone who assisted with this program, our special constables, our fare inspectors, our partners in the union, and most of all, the customers that pay their fare regularly. Thank you for your time, and I will now pass the floor to my colleague, Monsieur Kirouet.
Merci beaucoup, Dwayne. Bonjour tout le monde. Good
Thank
morning.
you. Good morning, everyone.
We'll start with Paratranspo key performance indicators, starting with on-time performance. The chart shows, as a reminder, the percentage of Paratranspo trips that were, the percentage of Paratranspo customers who were picked up within their planned 30-minute window. In August 2024, Paratranspo on-time performance was 95%, the same as in July, and just above the 94% achieved a year ago in August 2023. Next slide, please. Tel que discuté à la rencontre du mois de juin,
Like we said in June, we will be presenting now some indicators 4 times a year instead of every meeting of the commission. So the first indicator being the booking line response times. You can see an increase, gradual increase of the average response time going from 2 minutes in January to 7 minutes during the summer. For August 2024, the average wait time was 6.9, a little more than last year. The increase is due to an increase in the number of clients that are requesting the service, which then led to a higher level of calls. Then the number of attendants at the client services was reduced in 2024. Despite this increase, we emphasize that the time remained still under the 15 minutes. So
the chart here shows the number of Paratranspo reservations by month, by mode of booking. In black are the number of bookings made by telephone, and in orange are the number of bookings made online. As paratransport ridership has continued to increase over the year, the total number of bookings has also increased hand in hand from 81,000 bookings in August 2023, a year ago, to 89,000 in August 2024, last month. Year to date in 2024, we've observed a 12% increase in bookings compared to the same period in 2023. The proportion of bookings or reservations that were made online was 10% in August, slightly higher than in 2023, when it was just under 9%. So minimal gains in the number of bookings that are made online. Next slide, please. The chart here shows the rate of paratransport-related complaints by month and by category. The rate of complaints in August was 1.5 complaint per 1,000 paratransport customer trip. This is a decrease compared to the previous 3 months and about the same as where we were a year ago in 2023. As you can see, the rate of complaints related to service delivery in the darker shade of blue, tricky on the projector, but the bottom of those columns has remained relatively steady in 2024, starting in January through to August, with more recent increases in May, June, and July, mostly due to an increase in complaints related to fares. That's the grayish in the middle of those columns. Next slide, please. Ici, notre dernier indicateur pour paratransport.
Here, the last indicator for paratransport, you have the ridership for the period of January to August. Since our last update in June, we're still above our predictions, which is identified with the black line and the results of 2023. So it's a good increase. In August, the clients did 68.2 thousand trips, a little more than 6,500 more than in 2023, and a little more than our predictions too.
Next slide, please. I'll move on now to our conventional bus and O-train KPIs, starting with line 1 service delivery. Again, as a reminder, this is the percentage of service which was delivered as planned. And in August of 2024, service delivery was 97.1%. This is 1.7% lower than in the previous month, but higher than in August 2023, which of course, in August 2023, the line was shut down until August 8th. The average service delivery for the month was brought down by 6 particularly difficult days where staffing shortages, immobilized trains, and a fire alarm, for example, led to low service delivery. When we're looking at the other days throughout the month, service delivery is much closer to where we've seen results for the previous months. Service delivery in June and July at 99.1%, 98.8%. Again, we're much closer to the overall average we've observed in the past year. Next slide, please. Here we see service delivery for our conventional bus service. And again, this is the percentage of our service which was delivered as planned. The results in August at 98.4 was higher than the previous month and is a significant improvement over the same month in 2023 when service delivery was 96.7%. August 2023 bus service delivery was affected, of course, by the closure of line 1 and the replacement bus service required at that time. July service delivery, which dipped below 98% for the first time in 2024, for the second time after January, was impacted by the strain on resources of special events, as well as the line 1 closure and replacement bus service, including the E1 service we offered. Year-to-date bus service delivery for the period of January to August, though, is 98.4%, about 1% higher than for the same period in 2023. So we are seeing improvements year-to-date. As we move into the busy fall period, we've seen an increase in the number of trips affected by heavy traffic and general delays, which is very typical. It's typical to see a surge in transit and traffic volumes, of course, with the start of the school year, the end of summer vacations, and the return to the office for federal government employees. And typically, we do see traffic congestion. It tends to stabilize by the end of the month, helping with service delivery. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have our measure of bus service regularity for routes operating every 15 minutes or more frequently. So this is for our frequent service. This chart shows the percentage of frequent bus route headways that did not deviate by more than 40% from the scheduled headway. So this is focused on routes that operated consistently with regular intervals between the arrival of each bus for our frequent routes. Service regularity for the month of August 2024 was 84%, 1% higher than for the same month a year ago, and just shy of our target of 85%. Over the course of the past year, we can see that service regularities dropped in September 2023 with the start of the school year and the higher levels of congestion we typically observe. So we might expect a similar challenge, to face a similar challenge this fall. Regularity then progressively improved over the fall and into this past winter, with higher levels of service delivery contributing to that increase in regularity. Next slide, please. The next indicator is the on-time performance or punctuality for routes operating every 16 minutes or less frequently. So this is the measure of punctuality and on-time performance for our less frequent service. The chart shows the percentage of trips which arrive at major stops no more than 1 minute early and no more than 5 minutes late. That's what we consider on time. The on-time performance of these routes has remained steady over the summer. As you can see, through June, July, and August, around 75, 76% on time. In August, we've measured some small year-over-year improvements in on-time performance, with on-time performance 2% higher than where we were a year ago. Next slide, please. Finalement, je vais présenter les résultats d'achalandage pour le service d'autobus.
And finally, the ridership results for Line 1 and conventional buses. For 2024, we can see the black columns, and the results from last year are in the gray. And the forecast for 2024 are the horizontal lines. So in July 2024, we had 4.4 trips, so 500,000 or 13% more than last year, and in line with our forecast, which were also 4.4 million trips. Thank you very much for your attention today. I'll now give the floor to my colleague, René.
Thank you, Chair. I love my team. So I just been told that the problem with the U-Pass has been resolved. Thank you very much. Great job, Tim.
OK, merci. Bonjour à tous.
Good day, everyone. As you can see, you have our usual plan for the bus operator recruitment and training plan for 2024. As you may remember, this plan was put in place to fix our staff problems and to make sure that before we lose bus drivers that are going on the train or even retirement, we wanted to have replacement staff.
And reliability are at the heart of this recruitment plan, and I'm happy to report that to date, we've onboarded 280 new bus operator trainees. We still have 4 classes to go, and our hope is that by year's end, we'll break the 400 mark, which will get us to the 90% mark of our overall annual target. This plan has been very ambitious, as you all know, and not without its challenges. Starting classes of 30 every 3 weeks has been no easy feat. And as such, we've had some smaller classes start along the way, but we've made some fantastic progress towards our goal of ensuring we maintain the appropriate staffing levels on bus to deliver our bus service. Next slide, please. Thank you. I wanted to briefly share some information on our rail operator recruitment efforts as well. As you know, our bus operator recruitment plan and our ERO and DRO recruitment plans are inextricably linked, and that's because our rail operators are hired directly from our bus operator pool. And so we're constantly monitoring the status of each employee group. While our main focus this year has been the hiring of diesel rail operators for lines 2 and 4, our recruitment efforts to support line 1 have been ongoing. To ensure our ERO and DRO headcounts are where they need to be, we work very closely with our rail operations colleagues to monitor staffing levels and ensure that we have training classes scheduled to account for both the anticipated and unanticipated reductions in our headcounts. Similar to bus operators, EROs and DROs may move out of their roles and into rail controller roles, supervisor and superintendent positions, to name a few, and they are certainly not immune to attrition and retirement trends as well. So with that, we have a small group of EROs starting next week, and a class earmarked for November for up to 12 ERO trainees. And that final number will depend on any changes we're observing or anticipating to the overall headcount. As for DROs, the ramp up and monitoring of the DRO headcount is ongoing. 56 DROs have graduated from their training program to date, but our recruitment efforts have not waned. We're expecting another 7 DROs to graduate by the end of October. And thanks to a class that just started last week, we expect another 4 to graduate a few weeks after that. We have an upcoming class scheduled for mid-October, and we're discussing the possibility of another class before year's end to stay ahead of the curve. I know I sound like a broken record, but with the opportunities for advancement, attrition, retirements, etc., we must consistently recruit to ensure that our staffing requirements are met, and that's what we're doing. This effort is ongoing and will remain a priority because it remains in pursuit of our overall service reliability goals. I will now pass it on to Troy. Thank you.
Okay, merci Olivia et bonjour Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Olivia. Good morning, councillors, Mr. Chair.
Some of the Plan 1 special works that is coming up this fall. I'd like to start off by saying that we appreciate that every time that there is a service impact, we know that there's also an impact on our customers as well. We don't take these decisions lightly. However, the upcoming work is required for both stage 2 expansion works, as well as to implement the necessary corrective measures to ensure the reliability and long-term sustainability of the system as part of RTG's sustainable solution related to the axle bearing assembly. There is much work planned in October, and while we are working to minimize those impacts, there will be multiple requirements for R1 replacement bus service, including partial and full line closures. The work that I'll be briefly outlining is an update to the information that was provided at the June Transit Commission, as well was followed up in a memo from Madame Amelkar late July, and is in addition as well to the work that was conducted in July, which addressed the tunnel leaks near Rideau Station, as well as the application of a sealant product to the concrete rail infrastructure between Tunney's Pasture and Bayview stations. As well, there was another activities that we leveraged during that time. There was a lot of there was stage 2 work to do the tie-in for the west, so they got to leverage that time to get ahead and de-risk some of the future works coming in that area. So we really leveraged the time to do some other work there as well. With respect to the stage 2 expansion work, there have been many activities linking the new expanded territory with the existing line. As you're aware, milestones linking the physical infrastructure, including the overhead catenary system, as well as the tracks, have been completed. The next phase, though, is to connect and test the signaling and train control systems for the extension. Several pre-tests have already been conducted with minimal to no impact to service. However, the next phase is much more intrusive and requires 2 full temporary closures of the line. Sunday, September 29th, service will start with R1, and we anticipate that by midday, testing will be complete and rail service will be able to resume. The following weekend on October 5th, the full line will be replaced with R1 bus service for the entire day and will return to service on Sunday, October 6th. The required outages will test the system holistically from Tunney's Pasture through Blair Station, all the way to Trim Station. During the test, up to 8 trains will be in operation and will assess a number of scenarios, including train launches and reductions from the maintenance and storage facility, scheduled adherence, all the train communications that are required with the wayside equipment, as well as alternate service patterns. Unfortunately, while this testing is underway, it is impossible to operate with customers at the same time. So we're currently at the final stages of planning for these closures. We believe that we've locked down all the dates and times, but there is subject to some minor changes, but we don't anticipate that at this time. RTG is also planning additional works to be completed in the fall that is required as I mentioned, as part of their sustainable solution to the axle bearing assembly. Important steps have already been undertaken towards a permanent solution, including adjustments and oversight of the restraining rails, the implementation of the top of rail lubrication, as well as the nut pinning on the vehicles. And I know my colleague, Mr. Holder, will talk about that shortly. The next set of work includes ballast and surfacing program between Herdman and Tremblay stations. This is significant work. It involves adding rock and crushed stone, building up the shoulders that hold the track in place, making some minor adjustments and some realignments to help reinforce the tracks and ultimately provide more stability. This will happen on both tracks between, as I said, between Tremblay and Herdman stations. Additionally, RTG will conduct rail grinding across the entire alignment to reduce noise, vibration, and to improve the overall ride quality. As always, we'll attempt to leverage the closures to do as much work as possible for other works. One of the things that we're trying to coordinate is the OSIM inspection that's required in the Saint Laurent Tunnel. That work has already started and will continue on for weeks, if not months, but we want to leverage that time. We want to leverage these closures if we can to get that work in there to avoid another potential closure down the road. So more information to come on that. Alors que nous poursuivons notre travail en collaboration avec
While we
le
continue our
GTA,
work in cooperation to finalize the details, we know that there will be a temporary closure of the line, and we're aware that there will be more demand for the bus service. In as much as possible, we will try to reduce the impact for our clients. It will do the work at the end of the evening on weekends, and we will have service on only one line. The information and updates will be communicated by our regular channels, updates that will be published on social media, signs in the stations of Line 1 and our website.
Just like to end my portion here with thanking all our customers for patience while we work to enhance the reliability of the system. It's critical work that we need to do for both the expansion, but as well as for the long-term reliability and sustainability. So we understand that this has some impacts, but these are the right actions to take to ensure that the system will perform the way we intend and service our customers the way we want. So at this point, I'll turn things over to my colleague, Richard. I'll see.
Merci, Troy, et bonjour à tous.
Thank you, Troy. Good morning, everyone. On the next slide, I will give you an update on the axle bearing issue and the work that have been done so far, and on the next steps.
I think the first item that I want to reiterate has already been discussed by Renee. The significance of the statement from RTG that they have directed Alstom to proceed with the redesign of the cartridge bearing assembly. That helps the city significantly, and it is combined with the second commitment that we've received from RTG, that they have reiterated that they will meet their commitment to the December 2024 timeline to deliver a consolidated status and remedial assessment report to the city. These items are critical for the Confederation line to achieve the performance and reliability expectations as required by the PA. This slide summarizes the two main work streams associated with the bearing assembly issue: the containment plans, the mitigation plans, and their corresponding work. Under the containment plans, the axle inspection regime has not changed, and we continue to inspect every 3,750 kilometers and replace at every 60,000 kilometers. The temporary speed restrictions are still in place. In the next few slides, I will expand on the mitigation planned work that is underway. Next slide, please. So starting with the nut pinning, RTG is making significant progress with this modification. Back in May, we were at 30% of leading and trailers having had the pin modification completed. Today, we are now at 82%. This work will ultimately extend the lifespan of the axles and relieve challenges with supply chains and the additional maintenance burden currently experienced by RTM. Next slide, please. In terms of the onboard condition monitoring, as Transit Commission may recall, we have been working with the National Research Council to test vibration monitoring equipment at their facility in Ottawa to see if we can identify a signature before a failure of a cartridge bearing assembly occurs. Is included, and the result reviewed and analyzed. The kinds of vibration sensors. Next. In terms in Q2 of 2024, lubricators were installed and for the tunnel section, RTG. Part of the work testing is required. This in terms of reducing lateral forces on the bogey. We have a lot of data that is being analyzed, and we expect RTG is also working with the NRC to carry out testing and is in the process of installing strain gauges on the rails within the Herdman curves. These gauges the wheels exert on the rails. Both the measure that we have in place. Group based. Alstom has developed a new whale, a new working group on another online remotely. Of specially designed bracket position. Currently, RTM continues on their long-term maintenance plan to ensure that the no contact requirement with the back of the wheels is maintained. Next slide, please. Lastly, an important part of our work is ensuring that the adjustments that we are currently operationalizing are effective in mitigating the hazards associated with running a railway. This is where the safety assurance and the sustainable solution returning to full service, the technical structure assurance. Anytime a change system process ensures the right amount are achieved. This process will be guided by the safety management system of OC Transpo and RTM and best industry practices. TRA is assisting the Transit Engineering Services Group with this safety assurance process. That concludes my slides, and I will now hand over to Amanda. Thank you.
Merci, Richard. Excuse me. As we look forward to the opening of O-Train Lines 2 and 4 and to the launch of recognizes that this transition brings both benefits and a lot of change to our community. Our goal is to support and prepare customers in advance. We have already begun 2 communications campaigns in support of these upcoming changes and are communicating often to reach transit customers. We also recognize that the opening of the new O-Train South line is a moment to celebrate and an opportunity to encourage our residents to give transit a try. Nous reconnaissons également que l'ouverture des nouvelles
We think that the opening of Line 4, New Ways to Bus, is a moment to celebrate. We want to invite residents
lines to bus network. The customer marketing divided our campaign into 3 phases. Slide here. The goal of the campaign is to inform, prepare, and support customers to use the new line when it opens. This is done with focused communication efforts before and after the launch of the system. So as I shared in my last update to Transit Commission in June, the campaign began in 3 and it's we get closer to launching this. And over the past year, we've been working on building awareness on new tools. Called O-Train. The O-Train. As map by just cafes or amenities. And into the system. To reach transit customers. Like a sure that the audiences paired navigating station connection. This will be movie theaters, also adds in bus shelters at university campuses, on other digital screens and billboards across the city. In addition to this, sending a mail out to approximately households that are close to the system opens to welcome and support our customers as they begin to use the new facilities. Customers to go to octranspo.com. More familiar with the new lines and trains. We continue to publish new content on both our website, illustrate areas of interest to our. We are also working to plan open. So there will be a special event for counselors, funding partners, community stakeholders, and the media with an inaugural train ride to celebrate the opening of lines 2 and 4. And once in service, staff will also be available to support counselors with local events at their new stations. We understand that counselors and communities are eager to see stations and to showcase them, and we're ready to facilitate those activities. This could include hosting stakeholder groups, Q&A sessions with subject matter experts, guided tours of new stations and trains, as well as providing counselors' offices with information products to share with residents. And I would also say we are very happy to work with counselors to customize an activity at a local ward station for your particular community and their interests. In advance of opening, our team is always happy, in addition, to attend any community meetings or events in order to share more information about the new lines and our expanding O-Train system. So I encourage you, please, to reach out. If you do have an upcoming activity in your ward, that would be a good opportunity to share updates on the South Extension project. And you will hear me in a few moments make a similar offer with regards to the New Ways to Bus network implementation. So just as a reminder, New Ways to Bus, the New Ways to Bus network will be implemented following the opening of the train, lines 2 and 4. So as a result, we are carefully coordinating the campaign supporting both the new bus network and the train launch campaign. Both of these campaigns are data-driven and flexible so that as staff monitor and receive feedback, adjustments can be made to ensure that customers and residents are being reached effectively. Next slide, please. So to talk about New Ways to Bus. So as we shared at Transit Commission in June, the New Ways to Bus campaign is already in the public and has a phased approach in order to build awareness towards the start of that new network. Here's an overview and a reminder of some of the communications tactics we've implemented so far, as well as the future plans. So like the O-Train extension campaign, our goal here is to ensure that customers are aware of potential changes to their trip and to prepare and guide them through those changes. A key way that we have done this so far is by launching the new travel planner preview. You can use this tool to see an individual trip, bus routes, as well as bus stop schedules. We have also made changes to on-street information, including maps and signs, to begin familiarizing customers with the new bus network. And as we progress into phase 2 and look toward the third phase of this campaign, there will be additional communications tactics planned, including continued updates in digital content, as well as a network preview function in the transit app itself. So a key part of that final third phase of this campaign that we are building towards is a multi-channel paid advertising initiative. And that will include digital advertising across multiple websites, on social media platforms, and on local news and weather website outlets. There will be multilingual, digital, print, and radio ads. And we will also have advertising on buses, in bus shelters, on billboards, and other digital screens across the city. Finally, we will also be sending a mail out to every household in Ottawa to ensure that every resident is aware of the start date for the new network and has a chance to review resources and plan their new trip in advance of the network going into place. Next slide, please. So to look ahead towards this campaign further, we encourage customers to visit the New Ways to Bus webpage and to use the travel planner to understand how their trip may be changing. There are links to this webpage and travel planner regularly promoted across OC Transpo's communications channels, including social media and in our printed materials. And we have also prepared information materials for counselors and continue to support local events in advance of the bus network launch. Again, I'd like to provide an invitation to counselors to please reach out if you do have community events planned this fall and would like someone to provide some information about the New Ways to Bus network. Our team has been in touch with your offices over the summer, and we do have a schedule built up of upcoming activities where we will be present either with our community bus or staff attending to provide information, but we're certainly welcome to hear new dates or activities where we would be able to attend. And staff are really able to help in these activities on a one-on-one basis with iPads in order to demonstrate to customers the travel planner preview in order to assist them in understanding how their individual trips may be changing. We know that everyone is anxious to know the date for the start of the new network. So once our launch date is confirmed, that will be the point when we'll start our paid advertising, and we'll also be sending a mail out to all of the households in Ottawa. There will also be a lot of resources on both our website and on social media channels in order to promote that date and any trip planning information. We will continue to share new information and updates with our customers and with Transit Commission as we get closer to launching lines 2 and 4, as well as the new bus network. Thank you, Chair. That concludes our presentations.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a lot of information. I'll ask my colleagues to hold on to your questions because we're going to listen to our delegations and then come back to questions for staff after our delegations. We have just over 30. And our first speaker today is Hannah Tellier. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Leeper. I did say there would be an opportunity for motions after the presentation. It seems like a long time ago since I said that, but yeah. All right, Councilor Leeper has a motion.
Thank you very much. And I'll ask staff to put that on screen because I'm not sure if I have the most recent version of it. Fantastic. I won't do a bunch of speechifying around this one yet. So just for the benefit of delegates who are going to be making presentations, I do have a motion to make this morning. Whereas Confederation Line 1 service has been reduced under delegated authority to 10-minute headways during weekday off-peak hours, specifically from 5 minutes from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And whereas overall ridership on OC Transpo is substantially reduced from pre-pandemic levels, that has had a severe impact on revenues. And whereas frequency of service is an important determinant of ridership, affecting overall trip time in a system characterized by transfers, as well as the decision to use transit for non-commuting purposes. And whereas the combined potential wait times for the Trillium Line and Confederation Line are potentially over 20 minutes, not including connecting bus wait and travel time, seriously diminishing transit as an attractive choice for commuting and non-commuting purposes, which is critical to restore ridership levels. Therefore, be it resolved that the Transit Commission recommend that Council approve that Line 1 frequency be restored to 5-minute headways from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on weekdays to be funded from the city's expected 2024 surplus in tax-supported programs when the Trillium Line resumes revenue service. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other motions people want to introduce at this point? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, we'll now go to speakers. Actually, I'm going to give you the first 3 speakers so people know when they're coming up. We have Hannah Tellier up first, Nadia Rahim second, and Heather Farrow third. Hannah Tellier, hi, welcome here in person. So each delegation today will have 5 minutes to make a presentation to committee, and then if there are any questions from councillors, we'll have an opportunity as well. So whenever you're ready, you can just press the button in front of you and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm here as a concerned member of the public. I live in Ward 14, and so I'm lucky to live just down the street from the Ottawa terminal of the LRT. And wherever I've lived in Ottawa, proximity to the LRT or to a station of the LRT has always been a priority for me, because as someone without a car, without the means to purchase or own a car, it has always been a mainstay of my transportation in the city. Like so many others, the LRT for a long time was my commute to work, and I wouldn't afford to be late to work in the LRT for one reason or another. I would take a taxi or an Uber that I could not afford. I frankly needed the LRT to get to my job. But the LRT is not just about necessity, just like living in the city of Ottawa is not just about necessity, allowing people and enabling people to in a place that they can experience and love, and I think that's the heart of transit. I moved to Ottawa during the pandemic, knowing no one, and when our city went back up again, I used the LRT as a way to find and connect with my community in the arts. Carried performances, workshops, where I could contribute as a volunteer and an audience member. On the LRT are honestly some of my fondest and proudest memories and moments living in Ottawa. A short walk to the station, a quick ride, and then another short walk to the theater. It allowed me to find my sense of place in Ottawa. It allowed me to engage in the local businesses that I passed by and discover local resident-run markets, events, and also give my time to build a great community. As a young woman, feeling late at night alone after or auditions or meetings, the LRT gave me a sense of security that I have a safe and reliable ride home. And so I felt able to and safe in giving fares measures who's more carbon intensive, moving farther commitments. Those who can alternatives will simply be excluded from activities like these. Systems are not ledgers to be balanced. They are public service need and that residents and volunteers rely on. These services are meant to enable just survive. When it comes to transit, we shouldn't settle for good enough. It should not be used as a austerity. Its service can be run affordably and reliably, and only by doing that, thriving, climate-safe Ottawa, people love to work, live, and play. I urge the Commission, Council at large to reverse the LRT service cuts and invest in.
Delegate? Seeing none, thank you very much, Hannah, for coming out today. I don't see Nadia Rahim online. No? No? If we can get her online, and our next speaker then will go. All right, welcome, Heather. Just hit the red button there, or the button that'll make it go red. And you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name's Heather Farrow. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. Although I'm not the spokesperson. These opinions are my own, and I realize that everyone is doing such an amazing job, and I really want to thank you as a citizen of Ottawa, as a senior. And I'm here today to say, please don't cut public transit, and in fact, increase public transit, and please don't raise fares. I'm actually here to say, please work towards eliminating fares. So when people hear that, it's kind of shocking, I realize, in this day and age. But I want to say that there are ways to pay for this. And my message today is to reduce the number of private companies that are being hired or worked with in the city. And that will actually reduce government spending. And why is that? Because city workers and in-house can do the work better and usually cheaper. One of the big costs is private borrowing. Hiring a company to borrow the money for the city, for instance, for the LIT, for Lansdowne, with so much money wasted. That's valuable taxpayers' dollars that can go to public transit, that can go to public social services. Please don't let these big companies at the city's coffers. Do not let them take our valuable taxpayer dollars we need for public transit. There is no partnership in PPP, this so-called public-private partnership. It's basically a money grab, taxpayer money to private profits. And Ottawa is one of the top cities in the world who do this, who waste valuable tax city dollars. And what I'm talking about, for instance, is the event in last March called Ottawa Connects with Fiona Cousins with the PPP Council. Is very dangerous for Ottawa to host or be involved with. So with Free Transit Ottawa, I see sort of 4 main points. We really want transit to be reliable, very few breakdowns, a person can count on many long waits, affordable or free, and public. Please stop the contracting out to companies that I heard from the unions talk about. Quick and easy for dedicated bus lanes, many on and off points, and many buses in place, trains, and safe and democratic. Safe for the earth, solar or electric, safe for passengers, no harassment or assaults for women, passengers, for drivers, for people with disabilities, for workers, and have the users involved in decision-making. And I really want to applaud you for having the unions here today. So where is public transit free? Burlington, Ontario, for instance, has free public transit for people aged 65 and older every single day of the week. We can move to I know we only have 2 days a week now, but we can move to that. Kansas City, Missouri is another example. There are other European cities. Why do we need this? Because we're in a climate emergency. We all know we need to save our beloved city. We need to save our beloved planet from floods, tornadoes, the derecho, earthquakes, and more. We all know we have to reduce our carbon emissions. Please don't let the private companies hijack the climate change initiatives with greenwashing. Take a page from Kamala Harris and take a page from Canada's NDP and work towards saving the planet. Also, our population is getting poorer. We have to look at reducing poverty, and by having more affordable fares or no fares, we can work towards doing this. This will give everyone more security and health and safety. We need to work at helping people who are living on the streets. I see begging in my community every day in the drug culture. Pooling our resources through taxes and a proper public transit system will help go a long way to reducing poverty and bettering our city. Thank you so much, and free public transit now. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Heather. I'm not seeing any questions from committee, but appreciate you being here today and thank you for your presentation. Our next speaker, actually, I'll read the next three. We have Joel Harden up next, followed by Matt Lorty and Dwight Williams. Joel Harden, MPP for Ottawa Centre.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. As you mentioned, I come here with the honor to serve the downtown community as the Member of Provincial Parliament for Ottawa Centre, but I also have the honor to serve the province as the transit critic. My full-time job is monitoring the efficacy and well-being of our transit systems. I have a few messages for you this morning that I think are germane to the discussions that we're hearing and the motion Councillor Leeper has put on the floor. The first is, I have been trying with our caucus, working across party lines, to convince the Premier to give Ottawa a larger share of operating transit funding. And I had the great honor to meet former Premier Bill Davis on one occasion. And we talked about the fact that there was a time in the province of Ontario when there was a 50-50 cost-sharing agreement for municipalities in the province in funding public transit. And he talked about how much equity that created in our community, how that helped people get around. And he told me to keep pushing as the transit critic for that outcome. And that's where I want to begin today. When I've heard the Premier talk about our issues with transit in Ottawa, it usually always comes back to our LRT system. And that's the substance of Councillor Leeper's motion around the frequency of the transit. The Premier's told me privately on a number of occasions and publicly in the House, so I don't think it's wrong for me to mention things that are said in private in this case, that Ottawa needs to get its LRT system in order before it can count on more operating funds from Queen's Park. What I have told the Premier and what I will say today, which I think is germane to our discussions, is if we reduce the efficacy of transit service, we aren't going to be working towards resolving any of our transit issues. We're actually going to be pulling in the other direction, as other people have said, as the folks from ATU have said, as friends from OC Transpo have said, as riders will say. So I actually think having an opportunity here as a city to tell the province collegially, we need to figure out a way we increase operating transit so we can start to deal with the congestion that we're talking about at our city, the conditions of work that our friends at ATU have talked about today. And this is in our history as a province. We have had a moment where the province played a bigger role in funding transit. I also want to mention that I've had occasion to meet with the student communities at Carleton University, the University of Ottawa, University of St. Paul, Algonquin College, and they're beginning to tell me, as I'm sure you have also heard, that this is impacting where students choose to live. This is impacting people's ability to find and get basic necessities like groceries. So the impact of the reductions in transit are serious. I have an anecdote I'll end with. When I was in this city as a high school student in Councillor Carr's ward at Canterbury High School for grade 9, it took me about 35 minutes to get from the home I was staying at. I come from a rural area called Van Cleek Hill, well outside of Ottawa, Took me about 35 minutes to
Il m'a
get from
fallu à peu près 35 minutes pour aller de Orléans.
That's about the same amount of time it takes my daughter to get from our home, which is near Billingsbridge, to Canterbury High School now. And that is not the fault of the people operating and maintaining the system. It's not the fault of the system itself. I think it comes from the fact that we are not getting our fair share. And we have a report today from the Accountability Office of Ontario that Laurier has already shared. The person subsidy for operating funds for transit is actually going to fall to $31 in person, and it's 100. And the amount of shipments, but I do remember a time in 20 when our riders was 1 million per year. If we're shrinking, I think it was correct, 70,000 services where we were in the previous year because of the cost issues that we're struggling with. So the province needs to do its part. The federal government needs to do its part. Our city too, we need to be thinking about how we're allocating our money to prioritize transit, because I hear from car drivers, I hear from people who rarely use for them too. Thank you very much for your opportunity to speak. This is a commitment for me to continue with my colleagues.
But I very much appreciate having you here today, MPP Hardin, as a member of the provincial government, as we very much and thank you for a picture on the figures that Councillor Leeper was describing with regards to the FAO office. I thought that the per capita subsidy was 196 from Toronto. That's more than times a differential. But as I understand from conversations with you, is it even possible that that figure, that discrepancy, is trending even lower for Ottawa?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. So yes, and I think this is the downward spiral that advocates in the sector have talked about. And if we get money, invest in funds of the transit system we want, but the transit system we actually have, people are going to continue to turn away, and it's going to. For Divine on the floor for this the debate that we prioritize this fall, that we agree with the idea of moving back to the build funding for operational transit in Ontario.
And thank you for the opportunity to lobby for. Now, as the MPP for Centertown, you don't represent the residents of Ward 9. My MPPs are MPP Chandra Pasma and MPP Lisa McLeod. I've been having conversations with MPP McLeod on this issue. So there's a national report. This is the end of the line. That they lobby close provincial counterparts to advocate for for more funding. As Queen Park, you be willing to you be working to work with Ottawa area MPPs to bring this motion to Queen's Park together?
Yes, absolutely. This does not intend to be a part that most in Ontario is actually the City of London. So yes, we need to work across. McLeod and I have worked together before.
Great, thank you. My colleagues working with all of our Ottawa Queen's Park as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Hill.
Thank and bringing the Toronto perspective is appreciated for sure. I also appreciate your comments about sharecrop governance. Ottawa doing its part. I agree. We do need to do our part, and I would. Despite the fact that ridership has declined, we've increased the budget for transit by 27%. So I do recognize government. We're what the exercise for the next couple of months of budget direction is going to look like, is how we can do the best we can with what we have, but it's a balance. And I appreciate you coming to represent your position this morning, Mr. Harden.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, I'm seeing no more questions. Thank you, Joel, for joining us today. Our next speaker is welcome.
Good day. My name is Matthew Lorty, and I'm a resident of Manor Park, Ward 13. For public transportation, I take bus route number 7 to either get to downtown or station to either go to my office or use the LRT to journey further east or west of the city. Because I'm fortunate enough to live close to a reliable bus stop, as well as amenities such as grocery stores and pharmacies, I made the decision to sell my car a little over 2 years ago, and I don't regret it at all. It has provided me much more disposable income to spend on more walking and biking in my daily routine, thereby improving my health and fitness levels and reducing the strain on our health. Helps to still my style, as I can board it with my bike to travel conveniently around the city. Even in terms of mental health, I prefer taking because it allows me to use that time to take a nap, focus on podcasts, read the news, catch up, chat with friends and loved ones, discover what my community might be up to, and maybe even catch up to my video game backlog. Driving a car, I would have to instead use all of that time and effort to just focus on the road in front of me, constantly worrying if others are as alert as I am behind the wheel. Also, speaking as a neurodivergent person, not having to worry about the chaos that regularly happens on our roads relieves a great deal of stress and anxiety from my day, which saves me more energy from other activities, like volunteering in my community. I also love never having to look for parking. According to a report by rateshub.ca, car ownership, which includes maintenance, gas, insurance, parking, and administrative fees, costs the average Canadian over $1,300 a month. Taking into account the rampant costs that we have at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, I believe that improving public transit and making amenities, both general and specialized, more accessible by transportation methods of the reasons I've mentioned, I ask that you reverse the recent cuts made to the LRT, as these cuts will make being able to fully participate in society even more arduous for our citizens who cannot drive, want, or afford a car. Mounting frustrations with buses or trains that do not show up frequently enough, or at all according to their schedule, will turn even more of our citizens away from public transit, thereby making our desired goals of making Ottawa a greener, more equitable city to live even further out of reach. Finally, I would like to share a quote by Gustavo Petro. A developed city or a country is not a place where the poor have cars. It's where the rich use public transportation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Matt. I'm not seeing any questions. Thanks for presenting to committee today. Our next speaker is Dwight Williams, who is online. Good afternoon, Dwight.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My thanks to the Transit Commission for this opportunity to speak to some of my concerns regarding the upcoming changes to OC Transpo's routing and scheduling. Since this is my first time presenting a delegation, I apologize in advance for whatever gaffes I commit here. My name, as noted, is Dwight Williams. I've been an Ottawa resident since 1985, most of that time in what is now Ward 1 in Orleans. I've been, among other things, an office worker, a writer, an illustrator. I'm currently doing remote data entry work and spending a fair chunk of my off-work time as part of the caregiving team supporting my mother at Saint Louis residence in, I believe, Ward in another Orleans ward since the spring of 2022. I've had the benefit of a bus route running within less than 5 minutes walk from my current housing for at least 30 years now. The route numbers changed about every 10 years on average, but that benefit has remained. It's been very helpful, especially since my mother had to go into long-term care. In recent years, that route has been number 35, and I am alarmed about the plans announced to realign it away from Merkley Drive. I'm expecting to add at least 5 minutes walking time to get to either of the two routes that will still be serving my region of Fallingbrook here in Orleans. It means a little bit more wear and tear on me, yes, and I'm trying to age in place as much as my mother was before she moved out. And the bus shelters we're expecting to lose along Merkley have been useful when weather got particularly bad, whether it was summer or winter. And frankly, it feels like it's going to be made just a little bit harder to help my mother in her last years to whatever degree I still can. It's already about anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour each way as it is. And I do share some of Mr. Lorty's concerns as well. And there is one other concern that I didn't mention in my initial note, and that's regarding the public health aspect of things, particularly with regards to masking. I can't see that the pandemic has truly ended yet, and I think I am going to leave it there and surrender the remainder of my time. Thank you for hearing me out, and good day.
Thank you very much, Dwight. It was well-articulated concerns around Route 35 in particular. Thank you for your presentation today. We're going to move on to our next speaker, Joan Kuyak, and then following Joan, we'll have Antoine Baudet and Patrick Laplante. And I think Joan is online.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Joan.
Hello, I think you have a PowerPoint.
We have slides.
Yeah, I sent them in a few days ago and you acknowledged them.
We will bring them right up for you.
Thank you. Great. I'm speaking to you from Seniors for Climate Action Now, Ottawa. We're a growing organization across the country. There's chapters across Ontario, and we represent seniors who are deeply concerned about the impacts of climate change and about trying to stop the use of fossil fuels. Next slide. Next slide, please. Ottawa declared a climate emergency in April 24, 2019, and in 2022, we had the derecho. I'm here to tell you that public transit is a key part of combating climate change. The derecho in 2022 cost the city over $50 million in destruction of property and infrastructure. But not only that, there's costs from climate change and the destruction of property and infrastructure and rising insurance costs, and there's health costs in asthma, cardiovascular effects, heat-related illnesses, injuries, and deaths, not to mention increased domestic violence. All these costs should be on the same ledger as the costs of providing public transit. One on one side, one on the other. Next slide, please. Effective Okay. Effective public transit is essential to dealing with the climate emergency. The infrequent and unreliable public transit forces people to use cars. Light rail can reduce transportation emissions by up to 62%. And although money goes to expand systems, money for operating them is greatly reduced. The transit ledger has to include the cost of these climate impacts. Next slide, please. Individual electric vehicles aren't an answer to the climate crisis. They create enormous materials consumption. We can't mine our way out of the climate crisis. There's not enough lithium on the planet to provide the lithium to build the batteries we need. It's a question of equity. Many people are unable to drive, youth, the elderly, the disabled. It's a question of justice. Many people cannot afford a car, and often those who have to travel to work or school are the same people who can't afford those vehicles. You've heard some of those heartbreaking stories today. And the building and maintenance of roads for cars is unbelievably expensive, and it only gets greater as we keep building more roads. More roads create more need for cars. Next slide. We do applaud the conversion of the fleet to electric buses. This is a big step, and we really appreciate it. Next slide, please. We've heard many times today why people aren't taking public transit in Ottawa. We don't trust the service. There's long distances to walk for a bus or a train. The stations are actually badly designed and leave us out in the weather. Routes aren't taking us where we need to go. The fares are high and getting higher. People worry about COVID and other diseases. And I might add, there's a lack of public toilets. So if you're trying to take a bus that's going to take an hour and a half across the city and there's no toilets, a lot of people can't go, particularly people with Crohn's or colitis or prostate problems. Next slide. Cutting services and raising fares only makes matters worse, as you've heard many times today. And I think the Transit Commission agrees with this. And it discourages people from taking public transit. Next slide, please. A developed country, as the speaker before last said, is a place where the poor, not a place where the poor have cars, it's where the rich use public transportation. We need to find a way to put a climate lens on all the discussions around the costs of dealing with transit. We need to be able to balance the cost to the public from the lack of public transit against the need for it, and somehow make that part of the discussion. That takes the discussion out of the Transit Committee and often out of the Transportation Committee, but it does bring it into the question of whole of council, and it brings it to the province, as Joel Harden said, and to the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joan. Not seeing any questions from councillors. Thanks for your presentation today. Our next speaker is Antoine Baudet. Is Antoine online or in person? Hi, Antoine. Thanks for joining us today.
Merci. Bonjour, je m'appelle Antoine
Thank
Baudet.
you. My name is Antoine Baudet, and I really love transit. I love life, and I love our beautiful city, and I love my citizens, fellow citizens. So I use transit for now 40 years. And I observe a great service deterioration and an increase in fare. So I see that we are living in an ocean of cars, and it's poisoning us. I find that the person before me summarized very well all the important issues, so I don't have much to add. If only that I would like to see the will, a firm commitment from my city to support public transit. Public transit is good for all, those who drive and those who take the bus. And the car costs us all, even the ones driving, the other ones not driving. It is poisoning the atmosphere. It's poisoning us. The parking lots, it's so much space that costs a lot. It's very expensive to have a parking space. I've read somewhere that a parking space costs $15,000 a year. You can adjust it with today's dollar, be it used or not. It's a space that could use for life, for humans. So I'm dreaming of a city where it would be easy to move around freely.
Et puis, je considère que le transport en commun, moi, quand j'achète mon laissez-passer mensuel,
I think that when I buy my monthly pass, it's my share for a community service that is good for the whole community, even those that don't use it, because so I just want to raise awareness and raise a will, the commitment to use the car more wisely. And
I want us to take people out of their cars because it's going to be the death of us. How pleasant it is to commute today in Ottawa by car. It's not the freedom we bought into the dream of freedom, but it's not freedom. C'est des cages de verre. On est pris dans nos cages de verre et de métal.
It's a glass cage. We're stuck in there. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here today. There's no questions. Thank you for your attendance. The next person is Patrick Laplante.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Patrick Laplante. I'm a citizen of Ottawa who uses public transit, a recent retiree from the school board sector, and this is my first time speaking at a City of Ottawa committee hearing. I live in Capital Ward. Good afternoon, Councillor Menard, over Zoom, specifically in a condo overlooking Herdman Station. For context, that means I was able to hear the faulty wheel bearings, every time a train went around the curve, and saw the arcing on the morning of April 5th, 2023, as well as the subsequent rescue and repairs to the catenary system. My spouse and I are empty nesters who left the suburbs, where our local bus service had already been cut several times, and bought our condo in 2019, hoping to reduce our carbon footprint by living within walking distance of a major system, as was promised by. We are obviously for the two of us to volunteer or do errands using the and to drive into town and pay for parking. I'd like to be responsible for all parts within the downtown. The old train was down and I had to wait for 3 hours, which when I had to Ottawa so years ago, didn't know school and went down downtown. My late mother loved the service she received from OC Transpo. The current this 2-tier system on our roads, emissions, and the wheel goes. increasing their commutes to places citizens who don't have other options. I may be naive, but my understanding of the role of council is to provide services to the citizens who elect them. I believe these of Ottawa develop themselves, published or not. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Patrick. Actually, just stay at the, you have a question from Councillor Menard, your city council.
Please, thank you.
Speaking with commission today, I just wanted to ask you about the comments you're making about cuts and what you're specifically referring to. I assume you're in support of Councillor Leeper's to restore the LRT service, but are you also speaking?
Very specific reduction of the times. So Councillor Leeper's motion would address that. But there's bus lines that have been cut. Now, I don't very much where I live. I live right at Herdman Station. So most of the trips I take are on RT, but certainly connections. And like when I was working, I used the 9 regularly. And if a 9 doesn't come by, well, you're going to wait another line, right?
It does. That's support for the motion as well. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Raj and Kathleen Fitzpatrick. And I think Delphine is here in the room. Yes. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to address the Transit Commission today. My name is Delphine Robitaille, and I serve as the president of the University of Ottawa Students' Union, UOSU for short. I represent a little over 40,000 undergraduate students at UOttawa. In my year leading the UOSU, I've witnessed the levels of student dissatisfaction with OC Transpo and its services skyrocket, to the point where I'm now concerned for the future of the relationship between our two institutions. The UOSU is a signatory to the UOttawa's UPass program, which I want to talk about today. The program has existed at UOttawa since 2010 as a direct result of student advocacy and out of a need for affordable student transportation. This remarkable achievement in student-city relations ensures that all enrolled full-time students at UOttawa and the 3 other universities and colleges in the city get access to public transit across Ottawa and Gatineau for $229 a semester. At the University of Ottawa, over 38,000 students use UPass services, generating around $19 million in revenue for OC Transpo annually, with the work associated for OC Transpo as UOttawa manages the opt-ins, the opt-outs, card replacements, and other duties. Sorry?
We had someone unmuted online.
Okay. All good. For years, the UPass program. Students got brought new peak non-commuting hours to I cut down on the need for campus and city means space that the reduction in service from every 5 to 6 minutes between p.m. and 6 p.m. days. It's a blatant disregard for the needs of 100,000 university and college students, a significant portion of the city's population, also an existential threat to the UPass program. The University of Ottawa, located heart of our city depends on reliable and frequent LRT. The necessary burden on thousands of students yesterday at least 15 minutes students were waiting. It's worth it. Do you pass? So, to their worth patron. Stay there.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to highlight how impacted engine that and when we first it was 120 to under it's how many students use the service across Ottawa. It's actually the number in the city of Ottawa is students. And so I guess the question to you is, students the one that we should be able to afford those types of services, and should that burden not just placed on the back as a rider?
Canada job out there. The day our you should take our talents elsewhere.
Thank you, Chair.
You.
I was part of the 2009, I think. Departure time from campus, or you had that huge departure time at 9 p.m. when night classes ended.
Absolutely. You have flux students leaving campus. One of the main p.m. And then you got your students who at 11:20, which while trying to campus and having because in a room or time train left for everyone to get on. So then I waited, my 10 minutes extra. And to me, it feels like, and I'm not trying to do a process of intent on anyone, but when we're making those decisions, and if I'm not getting that call asking me about what students I represent 40,000 of them. I'm pretty sure the rest of my peers aren't, right? That we need to give, like, we want to be brought into this conversation. We talk about any before, during, or after those decisions were made.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation today. That's extremely helpful. I hope we'll see you sitting around this table in the not too distant future. So I have been focused on frequency. I've had a difficulty communicating the motion that I'm putting on the table, and I've tried to say frequency is a good in and of itself. Even if there is capacity, it is still more attractive to have the frequency of train in order so that people don't have multiple stop trips at which they might end up waiting 10 minutes for one train, go a stop, do an errand, wait 10 minutes for the next train, et cetera, et cetera. What you say today is that while I've taken it for granted that there is enough capacity with 10-minute trains, you're saying that may not be the case. Was your experience with missing a train because of crowds unique, or are you hearing about that as an issue?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I want to completely agree with the importance of frequency. That's also what builds people's like comfort and trust in our public transit system, is showing up to the stop and knowing that they don't have to check the schedule because in the next 5 minutes, there'll be something there. So I totally agree on that. And as far as capacity, no, that's definitely not an isolated incident. I work right next to the U Ottawa station. I see it frequently. The crowds gather, you know, and then like 2 to 3 minutes following the previous train. And perhaps they could all fit on the train, but the operators aren't always waiting, right? They have a stop to get to, fair enough. If we're taking 5 minutes to load at every station, it's not. So no, that's definitely all anecdotal experience, definitely not an isolated one. And I have students coming to my office or emailing me pretty much every day about their disappointment with the public transit that they've received at U Ottawa. Yeah.
I mean, I will just say one of the outcomes that I foresee of the cut service is it can be very inconvenient to take the bus to get to the train, particularly if you have to take a bus to get to the bus to get to the train. Some people are going scooters and bikes in order to get there when the train only comes to get that.
Yeah.
So, again, extremely helpful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Our next speaker is Raj Dubey. I see you, Raj, online. So you have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. I want to start off by honoring our Indigenous members and community members by saying it's not about us without us, and we're in this canoe together. I want to discuss how we can increase ridership efficiencies and how we can be a caring and compassionate city. I'm here to raise my objections to this council's uncaring attitude toward the workers of Ottawa through increased bus fares, lack of service, care, and service cuts. For example, I was seriously injured in an OC Transport bus. I reported the matter and have yet to have the city address the matter constructively, despite me presenting constructive feedback as how to fix the poor planning of the LRT stations and schedule issues, which led to my injury. And earlier today, there was a speaker, Laura Shantz, who precisely identified what the problem was. And that's what caused me to get injured. I've been waiting over 3 years. And now I mention this as to demonstrate how the city staff is disconnected from the service they provide. But however, I'm a positive person and I want to propose solutions. I want to propose a solution of the financial crisis which is caused by the mayor, especially regarding the bus challenges. As businesses are the primary beneficiaries of the bus service as it delivers workers to work, that any business in Ottawa with more than 25 employees must provide a free bus pass to their staff, purchased at full price from the city. This pass will be treated as a taxable benefit, but must not be considered as part of the staff's salary. Said employees will not permit staff who receive a free bus pass a parking space. Can't have it both ways. Alternatively, a municipal transportation tax should be put on businesses. Also, an agreement must be pursued with the federal and provincial governments whose employees work in the city of Ottawa. This would help these governments to meet their international agreements to reduce carbon footprint, which other speakers have addressed today. The only exemption will be for essential services such as hospitals, police, fire, and charities. This is because we want essential workers to get to and from work efficiently, and as currently the OC Transfer bus service is not reliable, all volunteers of registered charities, regardless of staff side, will also be provided a free bus pass at the city's expense. But it's not really the city's expense because the businesses are subsidizing that. The benefits will be that there will be reduced traffic congestions and carbon footprint, increased bus usage, and a guaranteed cash flow to subsidize the cost of business. Number 3, all city councillors and staff must be encouraged to take the bus to work with free, non-transferable bus passes, and all free parking for staff be removed and the parking space be available for the public to use. This is because unless the city councils and staff are suffering the same way we are, the general citizenry, change from the city council and staff will not come about. As I said, we're all in this canoe together. Council and staff need to lead by example. And staff who insist on using private transportation must pay for parking at the published rates. I've got 8 points. Point 4, switch from the current payment system as millions of dollars are being siphoned in siphoned in fees to the owners of Presto to the tune of $13.4 million annually. And the city still has to negotiate for millions more to integrate the old train system. We also need to place a municipal tax on Uber. For example, it cost me $8 in Uber to get from point A to point B from Billingsbridge to here, but it only costs $5 on a bus. It needs to be more expensive, and the city should be getting some of that money. Number 6, LRT contractors need to financially compensate the city for failure to deliver on time. Number 7, use the $493 million that the city wants to set aside for Lansdowne developers to fix the system to subsidize the cost of bus.
You have 30 seconds left.
And the last point is a new development fee needs to be charged to developers. And lastly, any city council receiving financial donations to their election campaigns or have received financial donation should be recused from voting on this consideration. And in summation, if you do the math, I've just shown the city how to save $1 billion in revenues and efficiencies. So
thank you.
Please.
That's your 5 minutes.
Thank you.
And Raj, you have a question from Councillor Leeper.
Okay, let me switch screens. Thank you, Mr. Leeper.
Councillor Leeper actually just took his hand down, but maybe you can follow up later. But thank you very much for those good ideas. And I'll go to the next speaker. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Kathleen Fitzpatrick, I see you online there. You're ready to go with 5 minutes whenever you're ready. Sorry, we're just working on the unmute feature. 1 sec. Sorry, Kathleen.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
That's much better. Thank you very much. Okay, now you're
Sorry
ready to
about
go.
that. Tech is not always my first friend. So I didn't put the doctor in front of my first name, but it is Dr. Kathleen Fitzpatrick, and I do have a PhD in political science, and I have lots of experience doing political consulting. And I would like to make some suggestions to the council, given my political and socioeconomic analysis of the situation you're all facing. And I've been a resident of Ottawa since 1985 when I came here to be a student at Carleton University. So I've experienced the city as a student and now as a professional who's telecommuting mostly. And that's one of the first things. So I have 3 main points that I'll outline and then go to in more depth. And it's free political consultation, so hopefully you'll all welcome it. So the first one is the big picture, the ongoing sort of mismanagement of city funds around transit systems. The second one is the changing ridership, which is a shift in socio-economic demographics that the city needs to adjust for. And fourth is the equity issue, which is going to have important political ramifications for all council members, and has been in the past should be a part of the political calculation of both the mayor and the council, just for your own good, right? So the first one is mismanagement. Now, I don't want to relitigate the bad decisions around the LRT because I'm sure you people are tired of hearing about it. But when Doug Ford is telling you that he's not giving you any more money until you get your act together, I mean, there's some value to that. And Jim Watson lost his job partially because of the whole LRT mess. And this has increased the frustration among the ridership, you know, and around the way that it has been a public-private partnership which hasn't worked, and that the maintenance people, the RTG, keeps messing up and causing frustration around the ridership, and to the point where people aren't taking transit anymore because it's not reliable. And these private companies need to be held accountable. And there are all sorts of jurisdictions around the world that manage public service with in-house situations that are more efficient. And that's what the union people have been telling you too. But you can't go back. I understand that. But you need to hold these people to account to deliver what they promised in their contracts. That's their job as contractors, is to deliver. And if they're not delivering, then you need to fine them or something. And that will help with the budget too. The second thing that you guys need to pay attention to is the changing ridership. As said before, the system was designed to deliver bureaucrats downtown to work in the offices. Now, with the onset of telecommuting, that's not going to come back. So the ridership is fundamentally changed, and the bus scheduling has to reflect that. People are doing flex work when they're not going down to downtown offices anymore. That means redesigning the needs of the people who are actually riding the transit system, which are people in the caring economy and marginalized and racialized groups who are trying to get to essential services downtown, like the speaker before me was saying. If you put a gender lens on this and a racial lens on this, the people that are riding the bus are no longer just going downtown. They're going to local jobs in local hubs, and they need buses to get them there, and the businesses need people to get them there. Right? So we need to think critically about who our ridership is and update our data. And otherwise you're going to keep making bad decisions which aren't going to create increased ridership, which we all agree is the goal. Finally, equity, right? Poor people take public transit. That is why it's chronically underfunded. But you need to think about it in terms of getting these people back into the downtown core off-peak hours. That's why this cut to the timeline is fundamentally flawed. People aren't going necessarily for work, they're going for entertainment. So to get people downtown, you need those off-peak hours, and it needs to be reliable so people will go and revitalize our downtown core through entertainment, through community work, through volunteering, right? And we need to recognize the decentralization of our city so that so specific suburbs and wards that are not in the downtown core are properly serviced by the people that are working outside the city core. So you need to revitalize the city core, and you need to decentralize the system so ward hubs of activity are serviced, right? This just is common sense if you think about it socioeconomically. And finally, before this ends, right, this will have political consequences because these socioeconomic changes in the population of Ottawa are going to vote. They're going to vote if they can't get to work. The bureaucrats that are telecommuting aren't going to vote. So it's in everybody's collective interest to do the right thing.
Thank you, Kathleen. Right on time. Are there any questions from the committee? I'm seeing none. Thank you for joining us today, Kathleen. Our next three speakers are Bennett Gladwin, Carrie Glines-Elliott, and Cedric Desjardins. And is Bennett in the room? Yes. It is great to see so many delegations in person. It's great to see people online too, but it's also nice to see people in person.
Hey, it's a lifestyle, right?
The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I should say good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bennett Gladwin, and I'm a resident of Ward 23 I'm here to talk to you today about the crisis of this city's transit system and to speak out against the proposed cuts to OC Transpo's operating budget. As a lifelong resident of Ottawa, I've been a frequent user of this city's transit system. As a student at the University of Ottawa and later as a civil servant, taking the bus to and from work or school was a daily occurrence. Since returning to the office after the pandemic, I've continued to take the bus from Canada to downtown several times a week. It is with that experience that I can state confidently for this committee that OC Transpo has never been less reliable or less capable of getting residents where they need to go. I want to be clear that this decline in quality of service has nothing to do with OC Transpo employees who work hard under stressful conditions to meet the needs of commuters. Those in charge have consistently tried to cut corners, reduced service, and inconvenienced commuters at every turn. In a time when people are more and more interested in reducing our reliance on private vehicles and reducing our carbon footprint, Ottawa seems to be doing everything that it can to push people back onto the roads. Like many Ottawans, I was excited when our new light rail system was nearing completion, but what should have been an upgrade for everyone's daily commute has instead turned into another roadblock. The LRT should be about giving commuters options. Residents who live close to LRT stations could use it to navigate the city quickly and reliably. Meanwhile, commuters arriving by bus from the suburbs could get where they needed to go without disruption. Maintaining previously existing bus routes would have further ensured that everyone could choose whichever option suited them best, reducing crowding and wait times. Instead, the philosophy adopted by the City of Ottawa has been to use its expensive new light rail system to inconvenience commuters as much as possible. Rather than being able to choose between bus or train, all east-west traffic is forced onto the latter, placing unnecessary strain on the LRT line and increasing wait times for all. Forcing suburban commuters to disembark once they reach the downtown core creates avoidable bottlenecks when the buses they arrived on are perfectly capable of dropping them off a few stops later once they reach Centertown. Everyone in this city wants light rail to work, and yet now we hear that it's already shaky service is being scaled back. And so, like many of the fellow residents here, I support the motion by Councillor Leifer to push back against those proposed cuts. With all of these issues noted, it is abundantly clear to me and most residents of this city that none of these problems can be solved by cutting transit funding. Reducing people's access to a system that's already struggling will only serve to alienate commuters further, pushing frustrated residents to turn to private vehicles instead of public transit. This would lead to lower ridership, increased congestion, and increased greenhouse gas emissions. The solution is to create a well-funded, reliable, and efficient transit system the residents of Ottawa can be proud of. The best way to increase ridership is to increase the speed and reliability of the services offered. Some of the changes that could make a difference include offering more bus routes that run more frequently, which feature live GPS updates at all times and not just some of the times, so that people know when or if their bus is arriving. Stop forcing commuters to disembark onto the LRT, creating artificial bottlenecks that slow down everyone's commute and places additional strain on the system. Increase the number of bus lanes, ensuring that public transit offers an escape from gridlock instead of a less comfortable version thereof. And consider reducing or eliminating transit fares to entice commuters away from getting into their cars. Now, I see I have a little bit more time, so I do want to speak as well to the economic impacts of increasing transit funding. I know that's a point that others have made already, but I know, speaking for myself personally, there are jobs in this city that I live in that I simply could not take because it would be too long and too inconvenient to get there. I could never apply for a job in Orleans, which would take me easily an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half each way to get there by public transit, and probably equally long as by car as well. And, you know, that reduces the economic impact that citizens of the city can have if they feel that they're restricted to career choices and jobs that are only within a short radius of where they live. And so I think that not only allowing people to access all the benefits of the city and its many amenities, but also allowing people to go wherever they need to go. So I think that all of this can be achieved with the right level of investment and the right changes in strategy, and further investment in public transit will help make the most of what already does work and help rebuild trust in OC Transpo and the City of Ottawa. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Carrie Glines Elliott. And Carrie's here as well. Welcome.
All right, I think it's on. All right. So hi, nice to see many of you. I think lots of people are going to present today with personal stories about how transit isn't working. I could do that too. The last 3 weeks have been an absolute nightmare. I've had a lot of adventures on the buses the last little while. But actually, I'm here to remind city councilors about what we've lost. I often hear people talk and say that transit is bad, and transit has always been bad. And I want to push back a little bit against that, because I think when you say that transit has always been bad, it sort of implies that we can't make it better. It's always been like that. That's not true. I moved to the city about 25 years ago. I didn't have any money. I certainly couldn't afford a car. So I rode transit all the time. I went to Carleton University. I got a graduate degree. I was an English teacher. And so what I did was I used to teach a class in the morning at one location and jump on a bus and go to a different location and teach, and then jump on a bus and go teach a private lesson, and then maybe jump on a bus and teach another private lesson. I was all over the city, Ottawa, Gatineau. I had a contract at Shirley's Bay once, a space agency lab. That was fun. Everything was by transit. And I couldn't budget sort of bumper zones in between because I didn't have that much time. And I couldn't really be 15 minutes late for a 1-hour private lesson with a senior executive. That's not okay. I never worried about transit. I really was able to do that job exclusively by transit. I had kids. I went to appointments. I took them to daycare. I took them to school, all by public transit. I mean, it really worked. We lived on a bus route, the number 5. It was so reliable, you could set your watch by it. This is what we've lost after a decade of austerity. And it's really meaningful. It's really frustrating to me. A young person moving to Ottawa now who wanted to sort of do that sort of thing, if they were a teacher just sort of starting out in their career, they couldn't do what I did, at least not by relying on public transit. And I think that's really sad. I worry that students can't afford to have part-time jobs because they can't necessarily get there, or they can't get the kind of jobs that they want because it's so difficult to get around by public transit. People in Ottawa are being squeezed. Some of that's not the problem of city council, right? There are parents in rural areas who are worried whether school buses are going to show up. That's not your fault, but they're your residents too. There are office workers being forced to commute into offices. That's not your problem, but they're also your residents. And all this austerity has made it very, very difficult to live in this city. These are decisions that were made by city council, right? Last year, city council voted for a budget that was entirely unreasonable. And there were delegate after delegate after delegate that came up and said, this budget's ridiculous, please don't vote for it. And city councilors still voted for it. And that's why we're in the position that we're in. So I'm kind of here asking for better from city councilors, actually. I really think that I know that everybody here, constituents all across the city, want a fully functioning city without having to pay for it. But if you're old enough to vote, you're old enough to know that nothing's free. And I think city councilors need to have good conversations with their constituents and say flat out, if you want a functioning city, we're going to need to pay for it. The city's responsible for a whole bunch of things: police, garbage, water, sewer, road maintenance, transit. I don't quite understand why transit's always on the chopping block. I mean, imagine if we said, you know, we can't afford garbage collection anymore. We're just going to stop doing that. Like, no, that's not okay. So why is transit always on the chopping block? Anyways, I see allies around the table. I'm not trying to say each city councilor is a problem, but I am sort of saying OC Transport can only do so much with the funds that they're given, and it's up to city council to make sure that they have the funds.
Thank you, Carrie. Are there any questions from councillors? Thank you for joining us today. Our next 3 speakers are Cedric Desjardins, Nathan Pryor, and Morgan Coulson. Oh, and then Daniel Jones. But we're going to start with Cedric Desjardins. Bonjour.